Thursday, February 13th, 2025. We are meeting in person in the Council Hearing Room 120 and virtually via Zoom to convene the committee's performance oversight hearing of the Age-Friendly DC Task Force and the Office of the Secretary of the District of Columbia. This hearing is also being streamed on the committee's YouTube channel named EAL Committee. The purpose of today's hearing is to review how these agencies are performing and what they are doing to serve the residents of the District of Columbia. Age Friendly is an initiative of the DC government to coordinate observations of residents with equitable action by DC agencies and community organizations to make the district an easier place in which to live, work, and play, as well as to grow older. Age-friendly communities implement programs and infrastructure features that help older adults thrive and remain socially active as they age. The Office of Secretary of the District of Columbia, similar to that of a Secretary of State, has many responsibilities in the district. The office provides authentication and legalization services, oversees notaries, and serves as a liaison with the diplomatic and international community. And of course, the office is responsible for the District of Columbia's public records and archives, including the long-awaited new archives building on the campus of the University of the District of Columbia. Today, we will be talking about the archives projects, hopefully getting a better understanding of where we are with this important project. We will hear from public witnesses about both of these agencies, what they're doing well, and what they can do to improve. We will also receive government witness testimony regarding their work during FY24 and 25 to date. I ask that today's witnesses keep your remarks, close to 5 minutes. I never like to impose a real limit because it's important to me to hear your full testimony. I just simply ask, please do not plan on making a 10-minute presentation. That tends to be a little too long. Having said that, I want you to know that your entire written testimony will be a part of the record. So if you have not submitted it, please do so. And you can submit it by emailing it to the Committee on Executive Administration and Labor at CEAL@dccouncil.gov. I also would like to thank our government witnesses for being here today, and I look forward to hearing their testimony. And most importantly, I look forward to their attention to the issues that our public witnesses may present today. And of course, I thank our public witnesses. You've taken time to appear with us today. Your input is invaluable, and I certainly appreciate the time that you're taking to be with us. At this time, I'll just check in. Do we have any other colleagues online? All right, we do not. So we are soloing, as seems to be the custom when we do these oversight hearings. But I can promise you when we have the budget hearings that start in April, everyone will be loaded up because we all are very concerned as to how we're spending our revenues, which tend to be a little flat during this phase of our government. In previous years, we've had a lot of generosity, and we have been able to do extraordinary things. And now we're kind of having to keep the line because we just don't have that kind of robust input. And as you know, the monies that we received through COVID period we have finally utilized all of those dollars. So we'll first proceed with our public witnesses, and let me pull out our agenda. All right. Our first panel, Carl Bergman with the Friends of DC Archives, Katrina Herring, Friend of DC Archives, Kimberly Binder, DC Archives Foundation, and Neil Flanagan, DC Archives Foundation. Do we have any witnesses online? No witnesses online. All right. Okay. Mr. Bergman. All right. Mr. Bergman, we will receive your testimony when you are ready.
I'm ready. Thank you, Chairperson Bonds, and good morning. I want to thank you for your steadfast support of the district's archives program, particularly now that our new facility is more or less in progress. Um, I toured the new building site with several others about 10 days ago. The demolition of UDC's Building 41 is delayed due to problems with the parking garage, but we expect and hope that construction itself will begin this fall. We have also witnessed impressive progress with OPR's debut of the new digital archives, which I've had a chance to look at briefly, and it's really quite remarkable. Throughout this program's history, we have raised several questions about the project's scope. Where were the district's records stored? Would the new building hold more than just the executive branch's records? We know that OPR is working on answering some of these questions. For example, it has had significant discussions with the council about its records and their place in the new building, as well as the school systems, which has been storing theirs. Several important issues remain, however, that cut across the district government. These includes the scope of the archives. Is there a definitive list of all DC agencies' holdings? We still don't know. Moving in, we know that negotiations are underway with Gilbane, the contractor, to move DC's records to the new building. What is the scope of these negotiations? Which agencies are included and which are not? From what we understand, uh, they're only going to move the Naylor facility and what's at NERA, the National Archives. What about the rest of the city agencies? Who's going to move them? When are they going to be moved? Who's going to do the work? How well is the staff at OPR able to do this work, given their limited number of persons? The building's land. Like the rest of UDC, GSA, or what's left of it, owns the land for the archives. Negotiations are ongoing with them to transfer the building's land to DC, which we assume the council would approve. What is a transfer status? And why isn't all of UDC being transferred to the district, especially that GSA wants to clear its books of facilities? There is no real federal interest uh, in the land underneath UDC. Why is that not transferred to the district? The contracts themselves. DGS has not posted the current contracts for the building's construction, once again demonstrating its disdain for transparency. Will the council end DGS's information embargoes? There's a lot of speculation about what the cost of the project is, what's happening to the project, but it's just speculation without real information. DGS has not even posted the current contracts for Gilbane. They're working out there. We know that. They wouldn't work without a contract. But if you go to DGS's site that that the Office of the Technical Office holds up, puts up, if you go to that quick base contract listing, there's nothing new. There's nothing. The contracts that are posted there have long expired, including the options. So we need to know those. Inflation. What is the project's full cost? Since we don't know the scope, the status of the contracts. We don't know the construction cost. Will they stay within budget, or what alternatives are being discussed? We're in the dark about that. Moving. Some city agencies, I found that CFSA has a contract to move its records to NERA. This should not be going on. They should not be moving things to Suitland. They should not be paying for this. OPR should be in charge of this. It is in charge of this on paper, but we have city agencies such as CFA continuing on as they've done in the past. As I've said, the records uh, should be, the committee should make it clear that about where the records procedures are. And finally, on greening the building, on our tour, we were told that the new building will be LEED Gold. The higher the LEED level, the more self-sustaining the building, and the more it will represent the city as a new facility and be useful throughout its entire 30-year or more history length of time. Will the council hold a public hearing with DGS and the contractor so that we can find out about the status of the LEED contract and why it isn't going to be platinum? We're excited the new project is underway, despite inevitable upsets such as the parking garage. The new archives will stir a new interest in our city's history and serve as a national example for others. It's an example now, but not a good one. However, this can only happen if these questions are answered to the council and to the public's satisfaction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Bergman. Now we will hear from.
Hi, Kate
Hi.
Bender.
All right.
Thank you, Chairperson Bonds, for the opportunity to testify, especially this week, which is auspicious. I was told that Tuesday was the 39th anniversary of the establishment of OPR. So great to know that. I'm speaking today on behalf of the DC Archives Foundation, which is a new 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to providing philanthropic support to DC's largest and most comprehensive historic resource, the DC Archives. We come before this committee first with praise for the work that our state archivist, Dr. Lopez Matthews, has undertaken over this last year, but also to raise concerns about the status of the new DC Archives facility. We are grateful for the partnership that we have built with Dr. Matthews and Secretary Bassett. Conversations with them have allowed the DC Archives Foundation to understand the objectives and goals of the DC Archives in order to provide philanthropic support for their work. The scope of work Dr. Matthews and his small team has achieved over the last few years is particularly impressive. They've made collections more accessible by building finding aids, establishing a digital portal for public access, digitizing frequently used materials in land indexes, and presenting public educational history programs. Dr. Matthews has elevated the DC Archives position by representing DC on national committees on archives and archival standards within professional organizations and through academic venues such as conferences. He and his staff have established best practice record retention policies for all agencies and prepared DC government record managers on the process of preserving electronic records. In addition to all of this, he has taken on the massive challenge of building a new archives facility and preparing to move its contents. Diving headfirst into the project, he has worked closely with the design and construction teams to ensure that the agency's needs are met, both by getting DC's irreplaceable permanent records inside and protecting them for centuries. All of this work requires a dedicated staff. As we have discussed in the past, and I believe you agree, the DC Archives' current staffing level is far behind those of comparable state archives. This number will need to increase to prepare the records for their move and operate the new building, which is 6 times larger than the current building and contains new programs. Specifically, the DC Archives currently needs 4 new FTEs before the move. A librarian for the Library of Government Information, a facilities manager, a staff assistant, and a systems administrator who can manage the specialized digital archive platforms. As we move into the budget hearings, we'll discuss that more, and I'll leave that for now. But the most pressing need for Dr. Matthews and his team and the DC Archives and the people of DC is a new state-of-the-art archives facility. We are concerned about the significant delay in the progress of the new facility at UDC, and that the projected cost overrun is not being taken into account in the current project capital budget. Previously scheduled to open in late 2026, agency responses provided to the Committee on Facilities indicate that the building will now likely open in late 2027, and that the project is projected to cost $52.4 million more than originally projected. However, DGS's statements omit a lot of key information. First, we don't really understand what the total current cost is. What does the council need to appropriate to build the building as designed by experts, promised by the mayor, and approved by council? Is this $52 million on top of the $106 million that was spoken about by Beverly Perry at her hearing a few years ago, or some other allocation? This vagueness is unacceptable given DGS's answer that it has identified a list of potential value engineering concepts to rein in costs that the agency has failed to control. The scope of this project has been meticulously considered and right-sized for the digital age. Any options that sacrifice major portions of this program, including leaving entire floors unfinished, would entail unacceptable and wasteful reductions in the function of the new building. Yet this short-sighted hacking at the project is exactly what we've heard rumors of. Moreover, such cuts might make the construction project costs look better now, but would reductions like this even save the DC taxpayers money in the long run? Records still need to be stored somewhere. Councilmember, thank you for all of your years of hard work that you and your staff have put into ensuring that the city gets the state archives it deserves. With your commitment to this project and your commitment to increase the project capital budget and provide additional staff, we can make sure the DC Archives building gets to the finish line in a form that serves the district, its people, and its history. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony as well. Next, Mr. Flanagan. Please.
Thank you, Councilmember Bonds. I don't have a written testimony, but I do want to emphasize the impressive work on digitization, which in addition to being, land record indexes, which I know Dr. Matthews has, for example, leveraged intern staff to do a lot of that work, is also, of course, vital records that are accessible. That have made accessible. So there's a significant amount of opportunities available for genealogists, in addition to historians and people who do title search and things like that. I do want to emphasize the concerns with DGS's operations. It is there's certain things that I don't believe can be changed. There's certain things mentioned by Mr. Bergman that I think are not appropriate to discuss in these costs at this point of the project. But we do have a design that was set out, and we have a design that was approved and has gone through zoning and all these things, and DGS is now looking for ways to cut costs that ultimately I think will not serve the residents of the District of Columbia. And I think the work of the DC Archive should not be sacrificed for DGS's issues with project management. I do agree it's difficult that we have not seen the current state of the design recently, or that or the contract or the budget. I think a lot of people in this room learned some things from DGS's statements to the Committee on Facilities, and I think I will be testifying in great detail at that hearing, and I hope you are able to tune in. Because I think there's a lot of issues that need to be raised there. But here we want to focus on the excellent work that Dr. Matthews and his staff have done, even though they actually lost someone. Someone left this year. So that's all I'll say.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony as well. I want to make sure that I have recorded your comments accurately, because I want to ask of the secretary and Dr. Matthews, archivist, some of these questions. Mr. Flanagan, are you indicating that the digitizing of the records is a good thing? Is that primarily what you're testifying to.
Yeah, I think it's excellent. You know, the idea is for the fundamental purpose of digitization, as I understand it, I'm not an archivist, but is that you know, you need to preserve the documents, and every time a reader touches the documents, these are fragile. Some of them have aged very poorly because of the paper quality. That can damage that. Let's just say it does. It's you know, it's like you know, polishing silver. Like it takes a tiny bit away, right? And but so you can only do it you only do it so many times. So that, but if you scan them, and then you have these digitization copies, the way they used to do it was with microfilm. They take microfilms, and then you know, if you had a heavy collection, they would do that. So the digitization preserves the documents, and it also makes them accessible. So ultimately, it's one of the best things for it. And but at the same time, you cannot dispose of the records in the process of doing that.
All right. And so your also concerns are primarily regarding the construction and the finale of this building and what we might have. And you're going to be speaking before another committee that handles DGS. Is that what you're
That's correct,
sharing?
yes.
Okay. I want to pay a lot of attention to that. And I have a lot of questions, so I may be there to join you on that. So thank you very much for that testimony. Ms. Bender, this new foundation that you have created, you also plan on raising money to help maintain the archives. Am I correct?
Yes, our goals are to help identify with Dr. Matthews what his goals are and to help support them through philanthropy.
All right, great. I wanted to make sure that you also have concerns, and we hope that the secretary and Dr. Matthews will be able to, you know, at least preliminarily answer some of these questions today, because I think the public is very, very concerned. And when I think about the potential of having to add millions to the construction plan, we really need to get to the bottom of that. I suspect some of these dollars may have to do with the fact that we move from, we're now gold lead, you know, moving from that to the other status. So also the moving of I believe there's a plant that we moved, um, within the facility. So you remember the heating, how we have to keep the temperature a certain degree.
I
Okay.
believe that plan was approved. That was the plan that was approved.
It was.
Yeah,
it
so
was.
from my understanding, that this is not a different design.
All right,
um,
but what I'm concerned with is when we talk about this 52 million, what do we attribute it to?
So DGS does have in their responses, they do list out a few different things, inflation costs being one of them. Other things that they talk about are related to the design, which doesn't quite make a lot of sense because the design was approved 2 years ago. So I'm not sure. We can forward you those
Would you
answers so that,
please?
yes.
That would be very helpful to us.
Yep.
Thank you so much. And thank you, of course, for your testimony. And
Thank you.
I'm excited that you have this foundation. I think it's tremendous. And Mr. Bergman, you may have left us, but you have given us a laundry list of things to be concerned with. Some of your questions you shared with us today are in the list of questions that I will be asking. So I think I'm in good standing. And I want to thank this panel for your presentations this morning. Look forward to continuing to work with you to make sure that we get our archives. Thank you. Our next panel, Bill Rice, public witness, Trudy Peterson, public witness, Patricia Wilson Ross, public witness, and Joy Kennard, public witness. And if you will, thank you so much. Thank you. Mr. Rice, we'll start with you when you're ready. All right.
Good morning. I am Bill Rice, testifying as a DC resident, deeply interested in preserving and disseminating our city's history. I work with the Friends of the DC Archives and the Council's Archives Advisory Group to create a state-of-the-art archives for our city. As you've heard, this past year has seen a major step forward to meeting this goal. In particular, the project to build a new archives has started at UDC to open in 2027. Based on the site visit that I was fortunate enough to be a part of, it looks like the project is off to a good start. However, as you have just heard, and I'm happy to have heard you so engaged, and I hope you will come to the hearing at DGS, for DGS, there are questions about whether there is sufficient money excuse me, in the budget to complete the building as designed. Excuse me, and that value engineering, excuse me, cuts are being contemplated. This is most troubling, and I ask the committee and the council to get specific answers on the budget questions from the secretary and most importantly, from DGS. Regarding the operations of the Office of Public Records, OPR, as I and others, and as you have just heard, it needs more personnel. The current 8-person staff, under the capable leadership of State Archivist Dr. Lopez Matthews, is woefully inadequate. DC State Archives should reach about 20 persons by 2027, and that should start now. To 2027, 20 persons, as Trudy Peterson, who I have the good fortune to be sitting next to, has testified, and I'm sure will further elaborate on. She is a former archivist of the United States, acting archivist of the United States. The move to the new building requires a massive effort. The first step is an inventory, both hard copy and digital, of current records at the archives and across DC government. This inventory is the foundation for keeping track of every item as it is carefully packed and moved. And because of the importance of this task, I would ask OPR and the secretary to open up a constructive discussion of this plan, to ask the public to take a look at it and get the benefit of expert opinion and others about this inventory and plan, because it is so crucial. Overall, I am happy to report that under Secretary Bassett and Dr. Lopez, OPR is moving in the right direction, a direction that more staff in a completed building as designed will achieve. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Ms. Peterson?
Yes, thank you very much, Councilmember Bond. And I'm very pleased to be here testifying and before you today. First testified on behalf of the archives before City Council on February 24, 2004, 21 long years ago. So I'm here today to talk to you as a professional archivist looking at it, but we've come a long way in 21 years when we didn't even have the promise of a facility. Now we've got a facility that is at least under construction. I align myself with all the comments that have previously been made about the concerns over money and what's going to happen if cuts have to be made. And that will all come up at the budget hearing. So I align myself with that. But when I testified 21 years ago, I said there were 3 things we needed to talk about: a building, staffing, and surveying records. Here we are again today. I'm going to talk a little bit about staffing and surveying records. As you've just heard, the staff currently is 8. It's done extraordinarily good work with 8 people, but it's stretched terribly thin. And to operate a new building, to manage all the new public programs that we know are going to be one of the wonderful things about having a building and having space we can do public programming, they can't do it with 8. It's just not possible. From my look at other state archives, I think the staffing should be around 20 to operate the building that we think is going to be built and have all the records come in from the agencies that we know are out there and have been delayed because Naylor Court doesn't have any space and agencies don't want to pay for record storage in offsite facilities. But you can't put 12 new people in next year. First of all, there's no space to put them in Naylor Court. And secondly, taking in 12 at a time stresses any agency, even a large one. Even the National Archives, when I was there, when we took training classes in, we didn't use that many people. So I urge you to ask the Office of the Secretary to give you a tiered strategy for how many people you hire the first year, how many you hire the second year, and how many you hire the third year when the building is starting to open in 2027, to give you a sense of how we're going to build to this number that will be adequate to operate. The second thing I want to stress is the need to understand where the records are from the various agencies. The Archives has now done a good inventory, they've almost completed it, of what is in the Naylor Court building. They know what is in the National Archives facilities around the country. Unfortunately, in the moving plan, the only plan is to move the records of Naylor Court and out of the National Archives, but not out of the agencies. Now, I understand very well that the agencies are supposed to be themselves doing that move and paying that money. But this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. This is a time when we can get the agencies to take a real look at what's in attics and back rooms and offsite storage that people have forgotten about, and get those to come into the archives. And the only way to do that, I think, is to have a plan coming to you from the archives on how to do this and then how to pay for this one-time transfer, which would happen after the building opens in 2027. But we've got to plan it now because we've got to survey those agencies and find out where that mass, I'm sure it's a mass, of records from everything from old DC General to agencies that have been discontinued to agencies like DGS, which is split apart. Where are those records and what do we need to do to make sure they come in? Agencies don't want to do this. It's expensive. It's low on their priority list. The Archives has a good working relationship now with a lot of the agencies. Let's build on that and understand really what we're going to bring into that building. So a final note, as we go forward then, we're going to need a new archives law in this city. The archives law that is on the books is out of date. It doesn't cover everything. For example, it doesn't cover the Attorney General, but it really needs a whole new look as we have a new archives facility and a renovated, reinvigorated archives staffing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And I believe we have next Joy Kennard. Ms. Kennard, go right ahead. You're on when the red light is on. Okay.
Good morning, Council Member Barnes. My name is Joy Kennard, and I'm a proud third-generation resident of Washington, D.C. I'm here today to express my strong support for the continued investment in the Washington, D.C. archives. I have had the privilege of working with the D.C. archives for many years, beginning with Clarence Davis, who served as the D.C. archivist. My engagement with the archives has been deeply tied to my work in public history, from assisting with D.C. Emancipation Day events while working at the Mary McLeod Bethune Council House, National Archives for Black Women's History, the Capitol Hill Parks, the Carter G. Woodson Home, while with the National Park Service. Meanwhile, teaching several courses in American history, with one being DC history at the University of the District of Columbia, and now my work at the National Museum of American History, a unit of the Smithsonian Institution. Since 2022, I have also worked closely with the current DC archivist, Dr. Lopez Matthews. Over the years, I have seen critical improvements in the DC archives, including the hiring of more staff, better access to collections through digitization, and stronger collection management practices. These advancements are essential, but there is still much work to be done to ensure that the archives can fully serve the people of this city like me. The DC Archives is not just a repository of records, it is a vital institution that preserves and shares the history of our nation's capital. It is a resource for researchers, educators, students, and the broader public who seek to understand the rich and complex history of Washington, D.C. My mother and I even had the opportunity to contribute to this history through a virtual program at the archives, reinforcing its role in connecting generations of Washingtonians. Today, I urge the DC City Council to continue supporting and expanding the resources allocated to the DC archives. Increased investment is essential for improving access, expanding digitization efforts, and ensuring the long-term preservation of our city's historical records. The archives play a critical role in educating the next generation and elevating DC's historical visibility on a national and international stage. Washington, D.C.'s history is a cornerstone of American history, and we must ensure that it is preserved and accessible to all. I ask for your continued commitment to strengthening the DC archives so that it can fulfill its mission for generations to come. And a final note I want to say is that I have managed historic sites and archives throughout my profession. I have managed historic renovations that have been in the upwards of $25 million. And so I just want to make certain that you know that the money that's allocated for this project is very common globally for a world-class research institution that we are planning for under the leadership of Dr. Lopez Matthews. I managed the National Archives for Black Women's History. When I was in Alabama, I managed the renovation of Booker T. Washington's home. We got $25 million from the Biden administration to restore and make a first-class facility in Selma, Alabama, for the 60th anniversary, which is this year. And I can go on and on about how important it is to digitize and to have the right footprint for records to be stored. And so I just wanted to close out on my testimony by saying that I hope you all understand that this is nothing new. I think the DC residents need it. I will also say that when I taught at DC history at UDC, I got into some of the records at the DC archives, and we were able to show Marion Barry some pictures when he was the mayor. Of course, this must have been about 10 years ago now, and he could not believe some of the pictures we showed him of his administration, one of actually his first administration. One was of him, his wife, Effie Berry, and the Pope. And shortly after that picture was taken, Effie got pregnant with Christopher. And so him telling that story to my students was just amazing. And so that's what this archives has. It has things that are vital to the leadership of this city that is an international city that needs to have a world-class facility to tell its story. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I think you, Ms. Kennard, if I might add, you sort of added to the multi-purposes for our archive. So I
Yes, ma'am.
appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
All right, we now can hear from Ms. Patricia Wilson Ross. We were having a little technical difficulty, so we were kind of stalling to see if they could fix it. So we can take your testimony now, Ms. Wilson.
Good morning.
Good
Yeah,
morning.
I am Patricia Wilson Ross, born and raised in Washington, D.C. I'm currently a resident in Ward 4. I'd like to urge the council this morning to provide funding and assistance to the Riggs LaSalle Recreation Center as outlined in your outdoor spaces and buildings. We have a senior lounge there, but it does not meet the standards of cleanliness and modernization. It hasn't been addressed since prior to COVID. Riggs LaSalle is a recreation center that has a senior lounge, but it's not funded under the Department of Parks and Recreation. So that's why we're asking for the council's assistance in getting that. This area would provide it provides services to residents from Ward 4 and 5. And it gives us a place to walk to so that we can gather, receive, and disseminate information that pertains to getting food in DC and transportation. We want a place that we can walk to. There are over 150 participants in the various programs there, but people are, using transportation or they drive. We have to drive to it. If we want to go to other facilities and stay all day, we definitely have to drive. This is the only place with the senior lounge that we can just walk to and have access to 24/7. Right now, if we go, we are using the what do they call it? The community room, which the heat is set on scorch right now, and it probably won't get turned down until somewhere close to the summertime. So that room isn't really usable. Also, we're using staff that's coming from various other senior facilities in the neighborhood. So if there's someone absent, then we have to cancel exercise classes and things of that nature. That as far as programming, as again I said, we don't have funding. We really need to have a place where we can get information about what is available to us in the city. I see that there are several programs under Age and Friendly in DC, but I'm not aware, if I didn't read about your different strategies and how to help the residents under the comprehensive needs, I would not have known about some of these programs. The need to for unpaid caregivers and as I said, how to get food. That information could be printed and left into this lounge so that people can have access to the information. Don't want to go past my time, but that's the gist of it. As I said, Department of Public Parks and Recs do not have a line item for seniors program, though they have room in their facilities for seniors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wilson Ross. And we're happy to have your testimony, of course, but today we're talking about the archives. But I must say, thank you for those notes. And when we have the DACL, the Department on Aging and Community Living before us, we're going to explore some of your concerns. So I really appreciate you giving us the early alert that seniors in your neighborhood need a place to gather information and to be, so we'll check on that for you. All right, thank you very much. To our other witnesses, Ms. Kennard, we sort of had a little quick dialogue, but
Yes,
I
ma'am.
just want to let you know how important it is to hear from you today, because you are bringing home one of the major services that the archives will be to community. So we appreciate that. And I hope that Dr. Matthews will have some time to spend with you and learn about how this enterprise, this very important enterprise, can be very meaningful to, on a very basic level, to community. So thank you very much. Thank you so much for your testimony. Mr. Rice, we know that you're going to be steadfast and you will be on our case to the bitter end, and as you should. And thank you very, very much for that. And Ms. Peterson, I have a big question for you. Having served as the archivist for our nation,
Mhm.
what should we anticipate as we move forward here in the District of Columbia, not a state, but wanting to be a state, as we relate to the recent occurrences with the National Archivist situation? I know this is a bombshell, but I'm a member of the 250th anniversary committee. One of the
Right.
I cherish that, so I'm very happy to have this appointment. So I'm wondering, what should I anticipate? Because when we had the opening program a few days ago, the deputy archivist
Mhm.
said, we'll be in touch and we'll talk about things that we can do in the city to get the city residents out. So should I expect, with current circumstances that have changed with this institution, that maybe we will not be included?
That's really a bombshell question. You're right. Let me say just a couple of things that occur to me. Pardon me. First of all, pardon me. Yeah, let me be clear. It is perfectly legal for the president to remove the archivist. We may not like it, but it is legal. All he has to do in return is tell the House and Senate the reasons therefor. Best of my knowledge, he hasn't done that yet. The American Historical Association has written a letter to the White House, basically reminding him of that need to send those letters. By the statute, then the deputy archivist takes over until a new archivist is appointed. That's what happened to me. I was the acting archivist for 2 years and 4 months. So these can stretch on for a long time. The stories in the press have been that other people will be removed. That would be civil servants. So you would have that whole other kind of controversy. And the deputy archivist is by law a civil servant. So you've got that much. You don't have
right,
a
thank
big
you.
political top to that organization at this point. What we need to watch here is who is going to be appointed and when, what kind of person, and what do they take as their mandate. The archivist actually has a lot of power. First of all, a president, while he is in office, can decide what of his records he wishes to dispose of, and it can do that only with telling the archivist he intends to do that. The archivist then has to tell the House and Senate if indeed they don't agree with what the president has. We've never had that situation. Be totally new kinds of questions that would start to arise. The president can also require agencies to send him material. That could happen. The archivist also can work at declaring what agencies are part of the executive branch. And when I was acting archivist, over my objections, the National Security Council was changed from being an agency to being part of the executive office and therefore comes under this presidential shield. So as to what is going to happen with the city at large, I worry terribly. I worry because of all the statements we've seen in the press about what is likely to happen. I worry also that we're going to take the 250th anniversary and turn it into a political event rather than a civil education event, which is what it should be. We really want to see an understanding of American history in its fullest extent over the past 250 years. You know, we're going to start seeing that in April, because if you think about the Longfellow poem on the 18th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive who remembers, that's Paul Revere. We're only a couple of months out.
British are coming.
Yeah, the British are coming. And so we should start to see what the administration is going to start to do with this ceremony. Did I give you any clues?
Miss Peterson, you have been more than generous. I really appreciate that. And I don't know if my team was making notes, but I made a few notes, and thank you so very, very
You're
much.
welcome.
Councilmember Barnes,
Yes.
the National Archives isn't the only organization you can work with. The Smithsonian is planning also events. In
Okay.
fact, right now we're getting geared up for a number of awesome things at American History. So we would love to work with Dr. Matthews and his team to brief you on what kinds of things we can collaborate on, if that's your wish.
Yes. I think the four of us should have coffee. And let's see if we can't make that happen. And we may let Bill come in because he started this and pushed this and helped me to have a clear understanding of the exciting value of the archives and what it can mean. So to our city, of course. So
Yeah.
let's see if we can't do that.
Thank you.
You're around here all the, okay, all right. I see your Selma shirt, so I just want to make sure. Of course.
So I just wanted to represent for the foot soldiers. This year is the 60th anniversary of Bloody Sunday.
Yes,
And
and
so
we
I-
appreciate that. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
reminding us. Thank you so much. So thank you all very much. And our next panel, it's Dr. Willie Hassan. You have the entire table. That could mean 10 minutes. Welcome, and you can begin when you're ready, Doctor.
So I hit the button.
Yes, you are with the red light. Yes, you're on.
I'm on.
Mhm.
Thank you, Council Lady Bonds, for this very unique opportunity to talk about an area that I truly love. It's been law, history, and education. And I'm also glad that it deals with an area that is very important of the times that I've spent here in Washington, D.C. I started coming to this town in the 60s, and I finally came here after leaving the classrooms in Amherst, Massachusetts, at the University of Massachusetts, to join the Barry administration. And I went right to work when I came here. I found the work that I've done in the last over 40 years to be much more rewarding than rubbing gravestones and going to courtrooms like the Dred Scott Court in St. Louis. I also want to speak to how important the archives are in terms of some projects that I've been involved in. in working on at least 4 recreation centers, LaSalle, Emory, Tacoma, King Greenleaf, and bringing the next generation of children along with those projects. As those projects were being constructed, I selected a classroom from a particular school, and they were part of that, and they're the next generation of the importance of those construction projects. I'll get to my testimony because I wanted to talk about the secretary of the Office of Secretary. And I went to this document called the Oxford English Dictionary. And it's a very important book because it deals with words and how they're defined, and if it's a person, what the responsibilities of those persons are, the Oxford English Dictionary. And I decided that I would talk about the Office of the Secretary as it related to my observations. I'm here today to give my testimony in support to Ms. Kimberly Bassett, the Secretary of the District of Columbia. My comments will focus on the Office of Public Records, Archives, and the Ceremonial Service Unit. Secretary Bassett has been entrusted with the carrying forth of those responsibilities outlined in that position. My observances and participation with that office during her tenure are positive, and she has been outstanding in the performance of those duties. I have participated in supporting the DC Archives by soliciting the donations of historical items, some of which will be part of the record and will be cataloged to interpret events and continually be a repository for events, as well as having the ability to use and adjust to the evolving information technology changes. Also, the foundation's truths of our history will be established and be available to future generations. Also, with a view of being able to be understood and translated by the world audience, and I say world audience because I've been around the world several times, lived on several continents. There's a lot of stories to that, and when I get further on into this comment, I'll tell you how it worked out. Also, with a view of being able to be understood and translated by the world audiences, along with historic celebrations, her office has also initiated forums to catalog, connect, collect, and preserve past and present evolving historical evidences with different audiences that will become a part of the upcoming new archives building. All of these things requires her leadership and a team effort, as well as the very competent and qualified staff she has assembled. I have witnessed firsthand Secretary Bassett's steadfastly continuing the spirit and devotion to having, preparing, and identifying and preserving the very best archives for the city of Washington, D.C. And I will add that being outside of the United States looks very different. And there's been a lot of personal comments that I've gotten from other countries that I've been in, whether it was Africa, whether it was Japan, whether it was West Indies, and on, that the archives in Washington, D.C. has had some very positive comments made. As a historian, I highly praise her methods. I have also witnessed the services she provided to a wide and diverse audience of people in the District of Columbia and their positive reaction to her office's planned historic events. The global diplomatic community is and always has been served with the importance of this office. I recently had the opportunity to attend one of these events composed of the international ambassadors from embassies to Washington, D.C., and they gave a positive response to it to me, some of who I saw and knew from other parts of the world. I also commend Mayor Bowser for choosing Secretary Kimberly Bassett to this position, and the positive results have continually proved to be outstanding. And lastly, I'd like to say, because I've interacted with the political world of Washington, D.C., and department heads, and even council people. And I'd like to say that Ms. Bassett She sees the position not as simply a position, but a service. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hassan, for your testimony. I think it's very important for this office of secretary to be well received in the community, and you have stated the record for that, and thank you very much for that. I hope too that when I have coffee with the three, that you'll join us, because we want to talk about history, DC, and how we might move forward. And
I've
it'll
created
help.
some of it
Yes, yes. All right.
firsthand.
All right.
It's not just chicken bones under a
I know.
demolition site.
I
It's above
understand.
ground as well.
I understand. It's an extraordinary amount of history, particularly when we think about how the wharf at which was the wharf end of 7th Street, how it was utilized back in the day, as people would say, you know, um, and of course, Georgetown, its origin and how it became a part of the city, and how some other parts of the city that were here are now in the state of Virginia, back in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So yes, there's a lot to think about when we talk about the archives of the District of Columbia. Where I live, Florida Avenue was the boundary. And now where you live has been incorporated. You're in Ward 4.
Mhm.
You and Miss Wilson Ross, your areas are now a part of the city. So that's all very important to the history of DC. And so I'd be curious to know, what do we know and what can we say to our future, our young people, about this extraordinary history and how we came into being, and how we continue to persevere in spite of the winds, the floods,
Mhm.
and all of that comes our way.
You have great cemeteries here, I say.
Yes, yeah, that's another. I think of the Rock Creek Cemetery in particular. But thank you very much for your testimony.
And thank you.
So this concludes our public witnesses, and I'm looking at our clock and thinking how extraordinarily quick we are moving along, and I'm sure the government witnesses are just ecstatic. They're just so happy with this. And I think since we have we're talking about the secretary of the District of Columbia office, we will now talk about that, and we'll invite the secretary, Kimberly Bassett, and her team to the witness table. And thank you all for joining us today. Okay. 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 Just bear with us. We're changing team members here. So thank you very much for that. Yeah, that. I wanted to make a few comments about the well, this is not organized like that. I want to make a few comments about the extraordinary work that the Office of the Secretary performs. And so, we are there. And before I swear in the team, I just want to remind the public that the Office of Secretary provides a number of services to district residents, aside from the archives that we're very anxious about. The office consists of 5 divisions. One, the Office of Protocol and International Affairs, that acts as the liaison for issues affecting the diplomatic and international community in DC. And then there's the Office of Documents and Administrative Issuance, that oversees publication of the district DC Register and the DC Municipal Regulations. Thirdly, the Office of Public Records and Archives manages the archives, which we spent considerable, heard considerable testimony, public testimony this morning. It manages the records and the Library of Government Information. And then fourth, the Office of Notary Commissions and Authentication oversees the DC notaries and authenticates documents. And finally, the Ceremonial Services Unit, which processes requests for ceremonial documents. If you are in the public and have received a resolution, ceremonial document with the mayor's signature on it, it comes through that ceremonial process. And today we're going to hear more about the various roles it plays from the officers before us. And so now I'll ask if you will raise your right hand and we'll swear you in. Do you swear and affirm that your testimony and any statements that you make before us today are truthful and complete? Thank you very much. And Madam Secretary, you can begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chairperson Bonds, members of the committee, staff, and guests. I'm Kimberly Bassett, Secretary of State of the District of Columbia, and I'm pleased to be here today to discuss the FY 24-25 performance oversight for the Office of the Secretary of the District of Columbia. I have previously submitted responses to the committee's questions, which I'm prepared to discuss today. Joining me today are senior members of my team, Alma Candelaria, Deputy Secretary, Victor L. Reed, the Administrator for the Office of Documents and Administrative Issuances, who also serves as the Office of the Secretary's General Counsel. I'd also like to welcome our State Archivist and Administrator of the Office of Public Records, Dr. Lopez Matthews, Jr., also the Director of Ceremonial Services Unit, Terry Handy, Director of International Affairs and Protocol Officer, Anthony Andrews, and Weewick Rembrandt, Operations Manager. I'd also like to take this opportunity to publicly acknowledge the talented and dedication of my staff and those who work behind the scenes to ensure that the work that we do meets required excellence that the citizens of the District of Columbia deserve. The Office of the Secretary is a part of the Executive Office of the Mayor's Cluster. I want to thank our Chief of Staff, Lindsay Parker, for her leadership and support of our team. Today, I will share the activities and the accomplishments of each prospective office and unit within the Office of the Secretary. The Office of the Secretary is comparable to the Secretary of State in our 50 states, including Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands and other U.S. territories. It is the official resource for protocol, legal records, District of Columbia history, and ceremonial recognitions for public, governments, and the international community. Our office is also the official custodian of the corporate seal of the District of Columbia. As Secretary of State, I also serve as the Chief Protocol Officer of the District. OS serves as the official resource on the proper use and placement of both the American and District of Columbia flags. Our website has a dedicated landing page on flag status for staff and flag responsibilities. Recently, we had 3 occasions to lower both the United States and district flags to half-staff. The U.S. flags were to be flown half-staff in honor of our former U.S. President Jimmy Carter. The district flags were flown half-staff to pay tribute to the memory of Lieutenant Robert J. Haney of the DC Fire and EMS Department and the victims of the tragic airplane collision near the Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. Excuse me. I am a member of the National Association of Secretaries of State, NAS. Currently, I lead the Committee on the State Records and Archives. Last month, we completed the NAS Winter Conference that takes place in Washington, D.C. every year. Dr. Lopez Matthews also presented there, the DC Archives Transitioning into the Future, for the State Records and Archives Committee as one of 3 presenters for the archives session. I also serve on the National Cherry Blossom Festival Board of Directors. Every spring, we help guide the celebration by commemorating the gift of cherry trees from Tokyo to the city of Washington, D.C., celebrating the friendship between the people of the United States and Japan. In October 2024, I was honored to be invited by Destination DC and the National Cherry Blossom Festival to travel to Tokyo, Japan as a part of its Japan mission. This trip was a part of a series of engagements with the Japanese embassy, continuing the relationship between the people of Japan and Washington, D.C. I was also pleased to take part in promoting the DC Jazz Festival at the Sumida Street Jazz Festival in Tokyo. In FY25, the Office of the Secretary has a total staff of 29 FTEs, an operating budget of $5,333,813 budget, and a capital budget of $57,802,919. The Office of the Secretary is comprised of 4 offices and 1 unit located in 3 different locations. These 5 components make up the Office of Secretary's key functions: the Office of the Notary Commissions and Authentications, the Office of Documents and Administrative Issuances, the Office of Protocol and International Affairs, and the Office of Public Records and Archives, and our Ceremonial Services Unit. The Office of the Notary Commissions and Authentications Commissions, Notaries Public, and authenticates documents for foreign use. The office is open to walk-in customers for document authentications and administrators the oath of office for all notary applications. ANCA serves an average of 40+ walk-in customers per day. Applicants seeking to become a notary submit their application online through our OnBase platform. In FY24, the office received 1,426 applications and approved 865 applications. In March of 2023, ANCA began accepting applications for those who wish to become an in-person electronic notary. In FY24, ANCA received 18 requests and approved 8 applications. To date, there are 22 e-notaries commissioned in DC. To be endorsed as an e-notary, the individual needs to first be a notary and apply before the 4 months of expiration date of their notary commission. ANCA is the only office under the Office of the Secretary that generates revenue through its services in authenticating documents and commissioning notaries. In FY '25, OS has a budget authority of $1 million in spending purpose revenue funds from fees collected by ANCA. We're also excited to announce that ANCA will be onboarding a new director in March of 2025. The primary mission of the Office of Documents and Administrative Issuances, the Office of Documents, is to provide the prompt preparation, editing, printing, and publication of the District of Columbia Register and the District of Columbia Municipal Regulations, the DCMR, under the District of Columbia's Documents Act of 1978. The Office of Documents continues to publish the District of Columbia Register every week. And in FY '24, the Office of Documents published 16,200 pages of the District of Columbia Register. The Office of Documents reviewed, edited, processed, and published 177 rulemakings in 2024, and reviewed, edited, and processed and published 219 mayor's orders. In FY '25 and beyond, the Office of Documents will begin to review the online DCMR to update the DCMR by identifying obsolete sections in chapters within 31 titles, and this will be a multi-year project. The Office of Documents is also responsible for drafting and compiling the district government-wide FY '24 annual FOIA report. In FY '24, the office processed 22 OS FOIA requests, of which 4 requests were granted, 7 were denied, 11 were transferred to other agencies, leaving no pending request. And in FY '25 to date, the office has received 6 requests and they are pending. The Office of Protocol and International Affairs, OPIA, supports the District of Columbia's thriving international presence. The district is home to almost 180 embassies and foreign representatives. OS continues to participate in events hosted by the diplomatic community and embassies around Washington, D.C. The office conducts in its outreach an engagement of activities that reflect the broad, diverse role that we play in the international community on behalf of Mayor Bowser. The Office of the Secretary holds meetings to connect embassies with resources that DC has to offer and foster productive friendships with members of the diplomatic community. Many believe that our role ends with hosting these international delegations. However, our role extends well beyond this function and includes serving as the liaison to embassies on solving issues that surface regarding neighborhood and community issues, as well as educating, navigating, and facilitating government processes. Moreover, we play a pivotal role in liaising between the Office of Foreign Missions and the State Department and other government agencies. 3 weeks ago, Mayor Bowser held the diplomatic reception here in the Wilson Building with attendance from 61 ambassadors and representatives from 85 embassies. The ambassador to the European Union, to the U.S., and the Africa Union ambassador to the U.S. were also present. The Mayor's Embassy's Neighborhood Task Force has been very effective in solving embassy and neighborhood issues. The task force helps manage, mitigate, and resolve issues promptly between DC residents and over 180 embassies around the city by connecting the resources of the DC government and the U.S. State Department to appropriate parties. In FY '24, the task force successfully addressed issues such as neighborhood disputes over tree trimmings, noise violations, protests, correct permits, water main breaks, and much more. The Office of the Secretary also actively coordinates meeting for the International Visitors Leadership Program, a program of the U.S. State Department that brings international visitors from around the world to D.C. for a mid-career educational exchange program. OPIA also serves as the coordinating office for these meetings with DC government officials. In 2024, we hosted 23 groups with more than 195 participants from 65 countries. Currently, Washington, D.C. partners with sister cities. Our sister city program fosters partnerships between cities around the world, focusing on areas of economic development, education, youth, and cultural exchange, and government administration. These partnerships lead to collaborative projects, initiatives, and productive relationships between governments, fostering community engagement here and abroad. The Ceremonial Service Unit. It is responsible for processing requests for ceremonial documents from the mayor, including proclamations, letter of greetings and welcome, retirement letters, congratulatory letters, condolence letters, and more. And in FY 2024, the Ceremonial Service Unit processed 1,036 ceremonial documents, leaving a lasting impact on the lives of DC residents. The Office of Public Records, which we've been talking about a great deal. It's comprised of 3 departments: DC Archives, the Public Records Center, and the Library of Government, with a total of 8 staff. In FY 24, the Office of Public Records has continued to develop its electronic records and digitization program. Through our digital archive, we have made available over 1 million pages, including 10,000 birth certificates, 10,000 death records, and it's been made publicly available, marriage record indexes, and over 900,000 pages of land record indexes. We've also made available our first 6 finding aids from the DC archives, and these are available on our digital repository. To support the preservation of electronic records, the office updated our General Records Schedule 20 to provide record retention guidance for electronic records, including email and social media. In support of this initiative, we have developed a number of training documents to support our work. Importantly, OPR team has developed training for DC records managers and has made it available via the DCHR certification platform. This training includes 6 sessions focused on basic records management, including record scheduling, managing electronic records, and the essentials of disaster planning for our records. Once all 6 sessions are completed, the records managers receive a certification of completion from the Office of the Secretary. Continuing our work from FY 24 to better support our 106 agencies, we've developed a series of training workshops for DC records managers called Record Management Wednesdays, where we meet every second Wednesday of every month to train records managers on topics related to their work and proper records management. We've also increased the in-person support of our agencies. We regularly make site visits to agencies to appraise records. We assist in preparing records for transfer or destruction and the review processes. We also met with record managements to discuss updates to their record schedules and implementation of records retention process for electric records. We continue to work with Octo to maintain our collection management system, and we've nearly completed an updated inventory of our records held in the Naylor Court facility. So we've continued our progress in providing reference support to our patrons. Most of our reference requests are now completed within 3 to 5 business days. And we've also heard from several longtime users who have complimented us on improvements that we've made in the reference experience. So progress has been made with construction of our new facility on the campus of UDC. The project has received approvals from the Zoning Commission, the National Capital Planning Commission, the Commission on Fine Arts. There's been some delays with our project. The removal of the existing OUC antenna from UDC Building 41 and the installation of a new antenna took a little longer than anticipated. We've also completed the interior abatement and demolition. Construction is currently paused while UDC and DGS are working to complete structural repairs to the parking garage. And these repairs are necessary to begin structural demolition of Building 41. I'd also like to share that in support of DC residents, we've also participated in several outreach activities in 2024. We partnered with DCPS Inspired Teaching Institute to host real-world history program. We have worked with high school interns. We've worked with DCHR to host the District Leadership Program intern. And we also have Marion Barry Summer Youth Program interns. Dr. Matthews' engagement in the importance of knowing your history. As I mentioned last year's hearing, working with DGS, we successfully relocated the Office of Notary Commissions and Authentications and the Office of Documents and Administrative Issuance to our beautiful building at 899 North Capitol Street Northeast. The move took place in September of 2024. This new location offers a much-needed space for the Office of Notary. There's a conference room in the new location, which gives ANCA the ability to swear in and to train multiple notaries at once. The Office of the Secretaries works with several organizations and city agencies to coordinate various ceremonies, conventions, parades, and festivals, including the work of the Commission on the Martin Luther King holiday and the District of Columbia Emancipation Commission. I serve as the chair and advisor to the Commission on the Martin Luther King June holiday and the chair of the District of Columbia Emancipation Commemoration Commission. The Office of the Secretary also plays an important role in the swearing-in ceremony of the mayor and oversees the DC One Fund campaign and the District of Columbia Voting Rights Statehood Grant. The most recent commission that OS has joined with Councilmember Bonds is the DC 250 Commission to celebrate, commemorate, and archive our upcoming milestone, independence as a nation. In addition, every 4 years following the presidential election, the Office of the Secretary administers the Electoral College for DC. In the 16th meeting of the District of Columbia Electoral College was held on December 17, 2024. Under the 23rd Amendment of the Constitution, the District of Columbia is allocated 3 electors. The 3 electors appointed for the 16th meeting this year were Darrell Wiggins, Russ Breckenridge, and Addison Rose, representing business, labor, and the future. The Commission on the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday assists the mayors with the district celebration to commemorate the birth of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And this year, we just completed a successful celebration with our traditional activities, the annual Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Breakfast, organized by the Great United Planning Organization, UPO, We had an MLK wreath laying. We also did the MLK Day of Action on January 17th, and we participated in the Martin Luther King Day Peace Walk on January 18th, 2025. Every year, in collaboration with the Executive Office of the Mayor, the Office of the Secretary, the Emancipation Commemoration Commission plans and organizes an Emancipation Day parade and democracy luncheon event. OPR is also organizing a lecture series to commemorate the April 16th holiday. So for several years, the Office of the Secretary has administered the District of Columbia Voting Rights and Statehood Grants, awarding $200,000 in grant funds each year to advance the District of Columbia's statehood effort. In keeping with Mayor Bowser's priority of finding fresh new ideas, we identify organizations through the request for application process to promote voting rights and statehood for the district. The FY25 grant was released on November 8th, 2024, and awarded to 4 organizations. OS continues its goal for this program, which is to strengthen awareness for statehood in Washington, D.C., ultimately resulting in true voting rights for the residents of the District of Columbia. The Office of the Secretary executed another DC One Fund charitable giving campaign, thanks to all of our 30,000 District of Columbia employees. This year was chaired by the Director of Parks and Recreation, Thenie Freeman. The 2024 DC One Fund campaign raised nearly $1 million. So in closing, I'd like to thank you, Chairperson Bonds, for your leadership and your support, without which our work would be immensely more difficult. I'd also like to thank our committed advocates. Thank you so much. We appreciate the opportunity to share our accomplishments and plans for continued improvement, and we look forward to continuing the work with you and this committee. This concludes my presentation. My staff and I are happy to address your questions at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for a very glowing report. Thank you so much. I think it's very important that the public get a full understanding of the significance of your office. And it does do a lot. So thank you very much for that. I wanted to ask a little bit start with the Office of Notary commissions. And, we've had this ongoing concern about e-notary, remote notary, and you mentioned that you have an online platform where you receive submissions, and that seems to be working. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So my question about the remote process, wondered if there is any way after 5 years that we can finally conclude that we're going to have the remote process.
Well, we're very excited. As I mentioned, we're getting a new director of notary. She knows that is her first, that's her first charge, is to implement remote notary. We've done great. We have a platform already set up. We also have completed our remote notary handbook. So when she comes in, it's just a process of implementing it and bringing our staff up to speed on implementing the program. So we are very, very confident that we will be doing that by the end of this year, fiscal year.
If I'm not mistaken, the law was enacted in 2018.
Yes.
Okay, and so the most recent law, 24-178, was passed in 2022.
Yes.
And I guess I'm concerned as to 5 years. We're almost at 5 years. I mean, we just began 2025. And so just wondered, what do we need to do to be assured that we're going to have this process? And I say that because if you recall, when we passed it, the issue was the occurrences that the hospital community in particular was having. People were sick and they needed to have documentation, notarized rather quickly because of certain circumstances. And I'm not suggesting that we have an epidemic again, but certainly with everyone sniffling and so many people being hospitalized, I'm just wondering, I want us to be prepared. And so I just really need some strong assurance that we are going to implement this law.
Thank you. I understand. It's probably something that I think about every day, wanting to implement. As you know, we started up e-notary. We have 8 people. We've only had 18 applications. Honestly, we're not getting a lot of requests for remote notary, but we want to have that set up. It is my priority. Our new leadership that we have, I'm very confident that we will be able to get this done. So I understand. And yes, we talk about this at every meeting, and we definitely will have that done.
All right, so is the issue that you don't have money to implement it?
That is not the issue. It's basically, it's about training of our team, and also leadership. I think, what my office has done, my executive office, we were the ones who completed the remote notary handbook. We also are the ones who has gone through all of the regulations. And so we have the information there. We're just ready for our new director to help us to implement it. And I think that we're very confident that it would be done this year.
All right, I appreciate that because I don't want there to be an issue when we look at the budget and we look at your budget specifically.
Yes.
So I just want to bring that to your attention. The resources that were collected through this process, does this make the this particular fund, is it considered an enterprise fund?
No, it's not
It's
considered.
not considered an enterprise fund.
Mm-mm.
Enterprise funds are those that are exclusive to an office where they have the ability to collect money. So I think it might really be because you collect the fees, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, so I think it might be. Okay, so there's
Okay.
some.
I don't use that terminology, but thank
Okay,
you.
I
I've
know
learned
that's
something
from
today.
that's from back in the day.
Okay.
Dr. Hassan can tell you it's from back in the day.
Okay.
But enterprise, it's listed in the DC budget, the various enterprise funds that we have. So,
Yeah,
okay.
we say SPR.
All right.
Yes.
And it says that you have a authority of $1 million. And this is from the fees that have been collected. So could I get a very accurate number of how much was collected in FY '24 to the penny so we know what the real numbers are?
So in FY 24 for authentications, we collected $994,620. And for notary applications, we collected $4,020. So, our apostilles and our foreign certificates, they generate most of our revenue.
Yep. Okay, so a little less than a million. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, thank you very much for that. I just like for people who consider themselves, mathematicians and even our young people
Yes.
to be able to play with the numbers and to come up with the real deal. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
The I would like to request copy of all of the 177 rulemakings from FY '24. If you could just send us an electronic file, that would be fine. And then the 219 mayor's orders.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Victor. I appreciate that. I know you're just playing with this all day and you have nothing else to do as you publish the registrar and also serve as the counsel for the office. But if we could have a copy of that, as you know, our committee is very, we're charged with a lot of the compliance of our government. So just want to make sure we're starting to look deep to make sure that when we create a law, that it has the capacity for implementation. And when it is not implemented, we want to know why. And so I want to make sure that the Inspector General is on top of all of this.
He
So
and his
thank
staff
you.
are very organized.
Yes, so thank you very,
Yes.
very much. Trying to connect the dots.
Yes.
That's what we're trying to do. As it relates to the work that you are doing, I'm just wondering about your staff needs and ongoing. Can you estimate the time that you're taking to, you said the Office of Documents will begin to review online DCMR and to update it. You're going to identify the obsolete sections and chapters within 31 titles. This is a multi-year project. What's your timeline for completing this project? Or have you set a benchmark or two?
We haven't as of yet. The DCMR, as you may know, is massive. The government began publishing them in 1981. And so we have 31 titles. Also over that period of time, the government has been restructured multiple times. There are agencies on our books that no longer exist. So we need to go through title by title, section and by chapter and section to determine what is in effect now and what is obsolete. That will also involve communicating with all of our agencies as to which regulations they actually manage, because also in this restructuring process, duties of one agency were transferred to another. And so this hasn't happened since our original publication of regulations in 1981. So at this time, it's really difficult to tell how long it will take, but it is an important project that we began in 2024. But with other things involved over the year, we postponed it, and we're actually starting to do the work again this year.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it's a very critical role. And I know that we love to talk about our archives, but I think we also have to talk about our rules and regulations and how do we get the government done, and how it really affects the public. So I will be very anxious. I'm not going to ask if we should have coffee, but I am very anxious that you have what you need, and whether it's FTEs or other kinds of resources. I know you're very creative and you therefore are figuring out how various agencies throughout the government can assist in this. But, if we need legislation that mandates that agencies, look at how they implement the law and to do the checking and maybe provide a draft, to you. And then from there, we began to have a document, put it on a fast track, in other words. How do we do that? I think that would be very important. We can no longer wait for tomorrow in these kinds of matters, when in a mega split of a second, things can change with the new world that we live in. So let me know what you think. Can give you some, just give me something to chew on as it relates to the resources that you would need and how you think you might utilize the entire government
Okay.
to assist in this project, maybe within the next 2 weeks. Just a little, a little, I know it's in your head already. I know that.
Yes, I will put together something for you to give you a sense of what our plans are
Thank
and
you.
how we plan to implement this.
All righty.
This also will take significant rulemakings to
Yes.
repeal certain parts of the DCMR, and then that will also involve agency action. And but to the extent that I've communicated with agencies last year, they were very forthcoming. So I don't see the communication between my office and other government agencies to be a problem to get
right.
through this over several years.
All right. Well, let me know if you think we need a ad hoc committee to help you bring this about. Within government, remember, we are your legislative arm for
Yes.
getting things done.
Yes.
And we just want to make sure that we're working in tandem so that we can get things done.
Okay,
So,
yes.
thank you very
Well,
much.
I have a small and dedicated team, and we've done all kinds of big projects with a small team. So at this point, I don't see any issues other than time.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Um, when you indicated on the FOIA, let's talk about the FOIA, which is always a big concern in the committee. You indicated that you had processed 22 FOIA requests. 4 were granted, 7 were denied. Can I get a list of those that were denied, or maybe talk to me about those? What kinds of things are denied by when you receive a FOIA request?
Typically, so the Office of the Secretary receives 20 to 25 requests per year. Most of those are about records that we do not hold. And so the denials typically would be a record that we don't hold. And then the 11 or so, I think that number is, those were actually transferred to the appropriate agency. So the Office of the Secretary, most of what we receive, we don't have those records.
All right.
And that's a trend throughout the government because people are people don't really know where to go to get their documents. And so most of the agencies end up transferring them to the appropriate agency.
All right. And in that transfer, how do you notify the public that their request has been transferred to another entity within our government?
For me, I communicate that to that requester along with the information of that agency FOIA officer.
All right. Is that done in writing?
For me, yes.
Okay. All right. Great. Keep those records. Because your buddy, you'll want those records too. Thank you very much for that. Just want to make sure that we understand how the systems are deployed and what are the results we can expect from our systems. Now we're going to talk a little bit about protocol. You mentioned that in FY24, the task force, this is the Mayor's Embassy Neighborhood Task Force, that it addressed issues such as disputes over tree trimming, noise violation, protests, correct permits, and what have you. When you are working with the embassy community, the adjustments that you help them get or make, do we have to go outside of the current laws that we have and give them some special assistance, or just what?
No, absolutely not. We do not go outside of current laws. We had a director of the Office of Protocol, Pat Elwood, and she came up with this idea that, most of our embassies were going to agencies and they were calling different agencies. And it just wasn't working. They were calling mayor's people, they were calling the Department of Transportation, and it wasn't working. And so what we did was we worked with all these agencies and said, hey, let us manage that. Let embassies call us if they have an issue. We will go out and we will talk to the agencies and we will help work with the agencies to handle your issue versus them just calling all agencies. And it's been very, very productive. The neighborhood task force isn't a formal name. It's just it's not formal, but all of us work to make sure that these issues are handled. Also, diplomatically, we know how to talk to them. We know we have relationships with them. So it's a lot easier for us to tell them what they don't want to hear. And so that's another reason why we like to have that responsibility. And it's really been working out very well for us this way.
All right, well, thank you very much. I suppose you were on duty when we were trying to resolve the issue of the bullhorns around the Chinese personnel who are here in our country.
Yes.
Is that finally resolved now?
Well, that was a collective effort with the mayor's office, member Brooke Pinto's office, worked very diligently. And I was very proud of what we were able to accomplish together collectively, because that's how it's supposed to work. And I feel like we've had a lot of calls from the embassy. We see them out at events and they're very thankful and gracious to what we've been able to accomplish. But for us, we were really concerned about the residents in those neighborhoods. And we are getting a lot of positive feedback from the residents because we definitely want everybody to have a First Amendment right to protest or to but we want to also sleep. So it was great how we were able to work and resolve that issue.
All right, well, thank you very much for that. And thank you. What is the status of the Sister Cities program? Are we bringing on new sisters, or what's happening there?
Well, actually, the mayor she doesn't just take on sister cities. We have capital cities, unlike other cities around the country. The sister cities that we partner with are capital cities. But I'm going to let our director, Anthony Andrews, speak to that. Even though I would like him to have an opportunity.
All right.
Morning, Chairman Barnes.
Good morning.
Pleasure to be here with you. Regarding sister cities, as you very well know, we have 15 sister cities, all of which are capital cities. That's a very specific criteria that the mayor has set for us. So unlike other cities throughout the country, we only deal exclusively with capital cities. We do receive a great number of requests from capital and non-capital cities, but we have to make sure that we have these criteria in place in order for us to have a meaningful, robust engagement with these cities. And so we certainly don't want to take on more than we can handle. And so our resources are limited, but yet still, we do a great amount of work with those sister cities.
Okay, so of the requests that you have received or you received in FY 24, how many requests did you receive then?
So I would say anywhere between 5 and 10.
Okay,
Um,
and so 5 is not too many. So
Sure.
what are some of the requests you received? Your 5 requests
So
you
we,
want to
re-
talk
we
about?
received requests from Australia, Canberra, from London. Trinidad and Tobago has actually expressed an interest, Port of Spain, Jamaica, and others.
All right, and so do these capital cities meet the criteria? I don't know what the criteria is. Maybe you need to tell us about the
Sure.
criteria. What's the criteria?
So for us, they have to be a capital city.
Okay,
first and
all
foremost.
right.
But also the level of engagement that we have with their respective embassies here in the district. Do we receive invitations from them? Do we engage with them? Our engagement with the diaspora is very important as well. So those are some of the correct chief criteria that we use in order to assess if they are in a position to be a capital sister city with us. And Passport DC, of course, we have that huge event that typically occurs every year. And so if they participate at the Passport DC event, then we see that there's a very serious engagement that they want with the city.
So what happens at the Passport DC event?
So the Passport DC event, they basically have the opportunity to open up their embassies, and they have this huge cultural extravaganza that they have. We have this opportunity for the citizens of the district to visit these embassies. After all, these are also their neighbors, and so we have music, we have literature that they actually put out, food. And so we really get an opportunity for them to engage with the cities, with the citizens of the city.
All right, and
And
when
what-
you say engage with the citizens, it must obviously is a very limited number of citizens. I would imagine that the embassies cannot take in thousands or hundreds of thousands of our residents. So how do we do that? Because it seems like they are an integral part of our community. And I would like to think that we have more of our rank and file citizenry participating
Well-
beyond those neighborhoods where they're located.
Well, I wanted to say that we partner with Events DC to do Passport DC. And it's really amazing. Some of the embassies get 10,000 people during this day. And we also do it for the European embassies, and they get the same amount of visitors. And we also partner with them on Chef's Embassy Challenge, where we have embassies from all over to come to Union Station, and they have food. We have, thousands of people that attend that event. We also partner with the Trade Center, the Ronald Reagan Trade Center. They have something called Winter National. I think this year they had over 56 embassies. What they do is they show their wares. They also sell some of their products. I mean, it's amazing. Thousands of people come
Yeah.
to that. So
Yeah.
unlike anywhere else, we do engage our residents. We give them an opportunity to touch these embassies. A lot of the embassies also have National Day celebrations where they invite district residents to their National Day celebrations. Our Caribbean community has quite a few embassies. And so in a week,
Yeah.
we could probably go to at least
Yeah.
5 or 10, and there are residents at those too.
Yeah.
So.
I appreciate hearing that.
Mhm.
But I'm really and truly focused on how we take activities that we put dollars and cents into,
Mhm.
and promote it in communities so that our residents can participate. I will be honest with you, I've never been invited to one.
Well, I'm going to invite you.
No, I don't need that.
Okay.
I'm just saying, if I haven't been invited, I have to assume that ANCs have not been invited, civic association members have not been invited. Do you see what I'm
I
saying?
do, and I'm going to take that
And it's
into.
very easy in community to assume that, oh, I'm not on the right list. And I think if we're going to have a full community, as we move forward, we want to make sure that we open it up so that those who might want and can learn something from the occasion will have that opportunity. I'd like to see all of our communities have an opportunity to that.
We'll be happy to
So,
spread that word.
I'll
Absolutely.
pay attention to what you send out. I don't think I'm on your mailing list for any of the activities that you do. I would like to be on your mailing list if that's possible,
Sure.
so that I can spread the word, which I definitely will do. I
Certainly can.
just think it's important that we show that opening. But on the sister cities, are you saying that Australia could not meet the requirement?
No, I'm not, I'm certainly not saying that.
Okay.
I'm saying that we have to create a history of engagement there. And so
I see.
therefore, that's a huge part of the criteria that we set.
All right.
And they have been wonderful partners with the secretary and our office and with the city. I mean, they just recently reopened their new embassy, which was a massive effort. And so they invited the mayor who participated. And so, they have been wonderful partners with the city.
All right.
And it's at the mayor's will. So,
Certainly is.
so we may say, oh, we want to be a sister
Well,
city,
now,
but
listen, we all know, we can say it's at the mayor's will, but the
Sure.
mayor can only pass judgment on the reports that she receives
yes,
from her agencies.
yes.
Right.
So I'm just suggesting that it makes sense to know what the criteria is so that you don't get these kinds of questions next year
Sure.
or as we move into budget.
Right.
I'm
Yes.
just very curious because at one time, Sister Cities was a very big and important aspect. I mean, exchange students, we talk about how the world is very tiny and we want to educate our community, particularly our young people. So just wondering, what the Sister Cities program really does, other than the document and the souvenir or the premium that they exchange between the countries. Do we still do or what are we doing with the sister cities? Maybe I should ask. What is your
So I
programming?
think, for example, we have had a number of our sister cities, they have made requests to meet and speak to some of our agencies. So we help in
Okay.
terms of our capacity building. It gives us a wonderful opportunity for us to learn from them and they to learn from us in
Exactly.
turn. Right? We had representatives from last year, we had a representative from Ghana who wanted to meet with different government agencies to learn about ticketing, parking, right? So it really gives us a wonderful opportunity for us to partner with them and to learn. So it's a mutual exchange of information. And so those are the type of the things that we do. Cultural exchanges as well. We exchange information about cultural activities. What are we doing? What are they doing? And so the idea is about capacity building. The idea is about partnership, which we do wonderfully well.
And just recently, we had the Mandela Fellows that come, and they're young people. We partner with Howard University, and we do exchanges and through that program. Also, the Department of Parks and Rec have events, but our school system does the embassy
Yeah.
embassy adoption
Embassy
program,
adoption program.
which is amazing, where we send young people to other countries and as an exchange program. They're celebrating a huge anniversary this year. So we'll be engaged with them as we always are. We do their Model UN. We participate in that as well, where we speak and we have partnerships with them as well. So we are definitely out there
Yep.
promoting the district and promoting, our relationships.
All right, well, sounds like there may be many avenues for people to participate. I guess it's unfortunate that we don't have a dashboard of government activities that we can forecast as far as a couple of weeks in advance that people can, download or have access to and discover what's really going on. I mean, I know that I get a few flyers from different agencies. Seems like every week we have things going on. And I think you're just saying you're adding to that accumulation of activities that are available to the public.
Sure,
So I appreciate hearing that.
of course,
But please put me on your mailing list. I would greatly appreciate that.
certainly. will.
Um, Now we're going to talk about the archives. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Andrews. We're going to talk about the archives. Okay, 8 staff, you're digitizing the records. The digitalization that you're doing, who does that? Is it done at the Naylor Court location? That's where it's done?
Yes, we do in-house digitization. I thought
Okay.
it was important for us to develop that skill set.
All right. And so is there a interest or desire that the agencies accumulate their records and bring them to that location and get them digitized? You take the old records that come from the agency, they're boxed up, sealed, and waiting for delivery to the new, because you've got the digitized record on record, so to speak.
So we digitize historic records at the archives, ones that are in our legal custody. If the agencies are interested in digitizing their records, we've put together standards for them to use as they develop digitization projects. Our office really wouldn't have the capacity to manage such a task. Digitization is extremely expensive and it's extremely time consuming. And so, and we also have, as we mentioned, 106 agencies. So that would be a lot of agencies to manage their digitization. And they also produce a lot of records. And for us, since we deal with permanent records, we feel like the investment is worth it in digitizing permanent records. But it's really up to the agencies, because when the records are at the agency, they're in the agency's legal custody. And so, we give them guidance for what to do with their records, and they don't really come into our purview until they are transferred to the archive.
Okay, so you're saying it's 108 agencies that you are anticipating receiving records from. All right. I guess I'm trying to understand whether or not we have a uniform process or procedure that they are to follow. Because if I'm one of the 108 and you tell me, okay, you're going to digitize your permanent records, you're going to keep them. I'm very curious as to what that really would mean to me in comparison to my neighbor agency down the block and what that might mean to that individual. I'm very concerned.
Well, that's governed by the record schedule. Everything that we do in every agency operates under the auspices of their record schedule. And we have general record schedules like, excuse me, General Record Schedule 20 that we mentioned that cover most records generated by the government, but each agency generates their own individual records. And so each agency has their own individual record schedule that guides what happens with their records. It gives the time it stays in their office, the time it either gets destroyed or goes into the Public Records Center, and then when it's transferred into the DC archives when it is inactive. And so each each agency has a record schedule that guides all of that. And we also have processes and protocols in place to kind of support the agencies in their work.
All right, so these 108 entities, agencies, do they give you like a quarterly or a semi-annual indication as to where they are in their record keeping management system?
No, we review their record schedule yearly to make sure that they
Yearly.
cover all of their records that they produce.
Okay,
And everything is really guided by the record schedule.
everything is.
Everything is guided by the record schedule.
Okay. So let me see if I can grasp this. My agency has 1,000 records.
Mhm.
Of the 1,000, I am going to have a record meaning a timeline to complete the task. And then there may be new documents, that permanent documents we would want to keep. So I can add to that. So is there a reporting process that you have so that you can keep track of the total number of records that are being maintained throughout our government?
No, because everything is guided by record type, not necessarily the amount of records
All
created.
right, well then, okay. Well then by type, what kind of types do you collect?
Well, it depends on the agency because everything is agency specific. So some agencies develop reports, some agencies give grants, some agencies, well, all agencies do correspondence. So every agency has correspondence listed on their record schedules. The
So the
Department of Vital
cumulative,
Records develops birth records
okay,
and death
so the
records.
cumulative number of documents, that's what I'm trying to get to.
Well, that you can't necessarily determine that because it's just based on the agency's work. And so that's why when we create the record schedules, we create them based on the type of record that they're creating, because you can never determine how many or how few of those record types that you're creating because they're just done in the course of regular business.
All right, I am going to request that if you would, let me know, I maybe within 30 days, I'd like to know the types of records that Department of Human Services is collecting and digitizing, because that would mean they would be permanent. Maybe a very strong one, DGS, another agency, maybe transportation, and a fourth one coming from another part of the world, the EOM. And what I'm looking for is have an understanding of what these types are. Because in every instance, surely we have, well, at least for two of those agencies, we have a history as to the types of documents that they amass each year in numbers. And so I'm trying to understand this volume because everyone speaks about, we've got to make sure we have the records. And I'm like, what are these records? Even Dr. Hassan indicated that he has contributed to the archives.
Yeah.
So what are these records that what's the real volume?
Okay.
So I'm just trying to
I get it.
understand, trying to get to that.
Gotcha.
All right. Thank you on that. Because when I read that, for instance, the Public Records Office, the volume of work products is just already outstanding. I mean, so I'm like, what else are we doing?
Well, I'll just say I really thank my staff because they're really dedicated to the work that we do and they give 110%. So that's really,
Of course. Thank you for that. So when we talk about the inventory of records held at Nader Court facility are nearly completed, what is the volume of that?
40,000.
40,000 documents.
No, cubic feet of documents.
See, this is, okay. You can talk feet. I'm trying to understand.
But see, the question you're asking is probably impossible to answer because you just would never know the exact number of pages of documents that you would
Well,
have
I'm not
because it's
asking,
not done to that level.
I'm not asking the pages. I'm asking the titles of the documents. A document may be 1,000 pages. It may be 2 pages.
Mhm.
So now you're telling me, I'm very curious, because now you're implying that the million pages are really just, it may be 600 documents with different titles, 600
Yeah.
different titles.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're counting the stacking up.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Because-
your cubic feet. Okay,
Yeah, because they build up to the number of boxes that you have. the
all
number
right,
of Folders that you
all
have.
right. And so when an
Yeah.
agency talks to you, one of the 108,
Mhm.
they're talking to you about cubic feet? Or
When they're-
are they talking about permanent record by title?
When they're transferring records, so we're talking about both. We're
Okay,
talking about the record type, and then we're talking about what is the volume of those records that need to be transferred or destroyed.
all right, so you're gonna let me know what are the record titles?
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
no
Okay.
problem.
So we can all be on the same page. And as you talk about the DC record managers, who are these individuals that are responsible in each agency? But who are they? Are they middle managers? Are they directors? Are they, specifically assigned to this task or hired specifically with a particular skill set?
It really depends on the agency. They're a person designated by the agency director to act as their records manager.
So they're the designee of the director.
Yes.
And what
most of them are
criteria do
volunteer.
you give them?
I'm sorry?
What criteria, as a director, what
Mhm.
criteria will I receive from you that says I need to have a records manager?
Well, the public records law stipulates that they have to have a records manager. And so many agencies will designate someone either as their full-time job or as part of their duties to manage their record.
All right, so I'm asking what qualifications must that person have?
Well, since it's up to the agency to determine, we provide support to them in developing their records managers. Some hire trained records managers who understand, records management practices and are active in the records management field, and some don't. And so that's why we provide the certification program, and that's why we provide instructions and support for agencies.
So they must go through your certification program.
Yes,
And in the certification program, you help them to develop a skill set
yes,
so that they can do this work.
yes,
Okay. And you also tell them that they're collecting cubic feet as opposed to titles, I presume.
yes. We help them
Okay.
understand
All
what the
right.
process of
All right,
records
we're going to
management
look at
is.
that law.
Yes.
Okay. We got that. Thank you.
And also, council member, I reach out to directors every year just to remind them, we need a records manager because they change, people leave. And so we're constantly talking to agency directors about, hi, we need a records manager. This is what they do. So it's an ongoing process that we have to stay up on every year.
Right. And I would suggest that a records manager should not touch any document, collect anything unless they've gone through your certification program, your training program. I think we have to elevate this to a level where everyone is comfortable that the documents that we have in our possession are in fact permanent and important documents. Otherwise, we'll get bits and pieces, because there were times years ago when I was told, oh no, don't throw away your notes, and I'm like, notes on a little, no. Do you see what I'm saying? So we really need to standardize what we're trying to do. This is an official important process. And you heard Ms. Peterson talk about what the archivist's power is. And so that translates to you, Dr. Matthews, and we want to make sure we're doing it right. I am glad that zoning and NCPC and the Commission of Fine Arts have given us the approval. I do want to talk about this issue of land transfer. Do we have that yet? And what I am asking is, since the archives is located on the campus of UDC, what is the nature of the agreement that you have between the university and your office, I presume, to utilize this lot and square and what have you, as it's called?
So I'll have to see what you're referring to in terms of the land transfer. I understand that.
Maybe that's a strong term.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about the building of the this vertical structure on the land that's
Yeah.
there. Okay,
Well, we have a land use agreement,
there you go.
which stipulates that it is an educational institution and that it fits into the
All right.
purpose of the land.
All right.
So we've done that.
Okay, so is that done through an MOU or
We do have
other
an
type of
MOU with
document?
UDC. We do.
All right, okay.
That was executed in July of 2023.
Okay. All right. So we're all on the same page. Okay. I know my terminology might be a little frightening, and very much I try to be lay terminology so that people will understand what's going on.
But we understood you also.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Excellent.
And in terms of collaborating with UDC in the new facility, the Felix Grant Jazz Archives is in the building, as well as the University Archives. They have a research room in the facility, and they have the use of the exhibit area and the multipurpose space. In terms of collaborating with UDC faculty and students, we do have our intern program, which the students can participate in. And we are open to working with professors as they develop their projects around researching DC history.
All right. And so in order for us to have the DC archives, are you telling me that we as a government had to construct multiple agreements with other entities in order for this to become a reality? And I'm asking because you mentioned, you've got the Felix Grant, they have their portion of the building. I'm just trying to understand the real relationship. And I'm also trying to understand it because you and I will not be in government forever. And when into the future, what are the arrangements for the archives? In most parts of the country, the archives is very permanent and it has a right to be. And let's say UDC moves to another part of the city. Does that mean that the archives can no longer be? What if the land suddenly became such a premium that it were go into private hands? I'm just trying to understand, what is the permanence of the archives at that location? So, any thoughts you have, and, share with me. It can be later, but I think we do need to get to that point. And you heard today that the public has put in place a foundation. So what are they really going to contribute to? And what's the permanence of what they contribute to?
So, council member, we have a comprehensive land use agreement that was executed between the District of Columbia and the University of the District of Columbia. And the signatories on that agreement are DGS, the Office of the Secretary, as well as UDC.
All right.
And those agreements from UDC's part was signed by their then president, President Mason.
All right.
And that comprehensive agreement we can share with you that answers and was negotiated over a pretty lengthy period of time by all parties.
All right. Well, yes, thank you very much. I just want to make sure we're on solid ground. Okay, so to speak. Thank you for that. These delays that are caused because of removal of the antenna, as you indicated, and making repairs to, I guess, the garage, which is under building 41, where the location will be. How long do we anticipate these repairs to take? Because the antenna is gone now, correct? Okay.
DGS has given us like a 4-month, 4 to
Yeah.
5 month
Okay.
schedule.
So that
completion.
means they will get to demolition doing this year, FY 25, or is it delayed to FY 26, which you know begins October 1 of 2025?
We anticipate FY this year. We anticipate
25.
FY 25.
Okay, but they have, how much longer do they anticipate it will take to make repairs to the garage?
4 to 6 months
4 to 6 months from
today.
today.
Yes.
Okay, you see how we're 4 to 6 months.
Right.
We're already in the second quarter.
Right.
Okay, all right. So we are moving to demolition in FY 26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Hoping 25. I'm positive.
All right.
I'm
Okay. I
positive,
just want us to
know?
understand where we are. Remember, all of the arithmetic and math students are paying attention and
And
they're
I will say I
they're-
am not a
they're
math
counting
student.
these-
I'm a history student.
these
We
months.
don't do math.
Okay. All right. Well, that was one of the big questions that we have as it relates to all of this. Now, what is the status of the cooling system that will be employed in the building? Do we know?
Well, I know we have changed the systems
All right.
to
What did
be
we
more
change it to?
efficient, and they are they meet the standards that were set forth last year in the law.
Can you give us a little more detail?
And so it is net zero. The building is net zero. We meet net zero standards. So we're really excited about that. And there are no fossil fuels in the building. So there's no fossil fuel use in the building.
No fossil fuels
Yes.
that will be in the building. All right, so we met that concern.
Yeah.
What is well, firstly, how many floors will be on the archives?
There will be 4 floors.
4 floors.
Yeah.
And you have indicated that the first floor will be occupied by some other entities. Am I correct?
Yes, because that's the more public space.
Uh-huh.
So the research room will be there, UDC's research room will be there, the exhibit gallery, and the multi-purpose room will be on the first.
Okay,
Yeah.
so is this where the Jazz Association will be
Yes.
also?
Yeah.
That's what I mean when I
Oh,
say
yeah.
other
Yes.
entities.
Their research room will be there, but their offices and workspace will be on the second floor.
So the second floor then would be workspace,
Yes,
offices.
yes,
So the third floor will be what?
for the Office of Public Records. So our staff, more archival storage, and the staff lounge.
So where does George Washington's paper go?
George Washington's paper will be on the second floor.
Okay, in the offices.
No, in a secure vault area.
So the secure vault will be on the second floor.
Yes. And I hesitate to say that because we tend to not tell people exactly where things are.
Well,
Because they're
and we
precious
know.
items and they could be.
I
security
understand,
risks.
but
That's my hesitation.
this is
Yeah.
for this moment.
Yeah. got it.
Okay, this
Okay.
is for this moment. We don't know. Okay.
Right.
You remember, you and I will not be here forever. So
Right.
We
We
don't
won't
know
be
where,
here forever.
any of
That's
this will be, but
Yeah.
that is the plan. It's,
That is
it's
the
what you're sharing with us. And so the fourth floor will have a rooftop, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be the way we operate now.
Yeah.
Will that also have a concession stand and things like that?
No, it won't.
Okay,
The fourth
just
floor
curious.
is record center store.
Okay, you're not gonna create a beach there with a
No.
swimming pool and all of
No,
that?
the
Okay, all right,
sealed, the roof has solar
all right.
panels.
Okay, all right, just trying to understand. So fourth floor will do what then?
The fourth floor will hold the record center storage.
Okay,
So, we have a lot of records stored. in the
more
Federal
records,
Record
more
Center, so
records.
more
Okay,
records.
all right. And therefore, the roof will be heavily insulated, right? So okay, infrared, okay.
Yeah, there
all
is
right,
a separation built into
All
all of
right.
the exteriors. of the
Okay. If you run out of money, which floor will remain vacant?
Well, those are internal discussions with DGS that we're working on. We're in
I'm asking you
discussions
in the
now.
committee.
We are working with DGS, every day. They've been very, very helpful. They're very committed. And right now, we can't say if we run out of money. We don't think we're gonna run out of money. We're gonna say that.
So the 102 plus 52 million is what the cost is estimated to be now?
Yeah.
And the 52 million, you are attributing it to inflation?
Yeah.
Partly.
Partly, yes, absolutely.
Hardly. I would like to get from you, please, within 2 weeks, a breakdown of the cost of this structure from your perspective. This is very important. And again, remember, the budget questions will be before you. And I do not want any issues regarding the budget of the Office of the Secretary. So that's why I need to get this information. As
We'll
quickly.
continue to work with DGS
Please.
to get that information.
Please, definitely. So as Ms. Bender implied in her public testimony, we should expect a late opening. In other words, we will be opening in 2028.
2027.
Think 2027? This building with all of its requirements we're not going to start on it until mid 26,
20.
18 months.
That's the projected timeline.
All right.
And so I have hope and I have faith that this project is going to be completed in a timely fashion and that we're really going to have a great building.
All right. So may I ask then that also within the 30 days, you send me your estimated timeline for the completion and opening of this important project? Dr. Hassan and Ms. Kennard somewhat mentioned they are prepared and have perhaps been contributing artifacts for the archives. How are you determining what you would receive for the DC archives? Can I bring my little stuff from, I'm just trying to understand, because there are many people
Yeah.
who have said that I have a history connection to the District of Columbia. And do they want this item? Do they want that item? You know, photographs from, let's say, 1900. Should I take a photograph of the interior wall of my house that I know my great grandfather did? The old brick, I mean, seriously, people are wondering, should they have an opportunity to contribute? Or is this all the government of the District of Columbia
So
archives?
this archive is the government of the District of
All right,
Columbia.
then we need to put that message
So we
out.
have a collection development policy
Okay,
that is on the website.
okay,
That spells out what we will accept.
all right, because otherwise you're gonna get these.
And sometimes we get that. And then when we do get them, we direct them to an appropriate institution for them to deposit their
All right,
historical material.
all right, so you're gonna make sure your website says that,
It
so
does.
that people, okay, understand, okay. Ms. Peterson, the former archivist for the United States of America, indicated that the new law, we may need a new law because the current law may be outdated. So I would love to hear from Victor on that, if you would help me understand what that might be, so that we can move that agenda as quickly as possible.
Yes. I will consult with Dr. Matthews and
course,
the
of course.
secretary, and we will put something together.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Thank you very much. And Madam Secretary, can I ask of you that we start from today forward, that I get a monthly sort of update on where we are as it relates to the archives, on the collection of records, which we're going to have that more detailed report, but understand about the records, about the facility itself, where we are as it relates to the construction and delays and what's going on, whether or not they've completed the repairs to the garage and things like that. And, you know, as you have to update the opening, and when I say opening, I'm thinking of when records would be moved into the building, when you think you need the additional staff, if that is a need. I mean, you may be thinking of just robots. I don't know. The public doesn't know. So we want to know where you are on all of this. And likewise, information, I have to request similar information on a monthly basis as it relates to the remote notary, you know, how you're progressing with that. Those are the two issues that have been outstanding within the public domain. Guess what? We appreciate your time this morning, and thank you so much.
Thank you so
for
much.
sharing with us today. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
And we'll see you at budget time.
Yes, we're so excited.
I know you are. We all are across this city. Now we will transition to having a discussion on age-friendly DC.
Good morning, Councilmember Bonds. I'm just going to pull up my slides real quick. Can we all see those slides that I've pulled up?
I think she's taking them. Okay. We will begin momentarily to talk about the age-friendly DC task force. And let me just, remind the public of a little bit about what the age-friendly task force is about. While many of the district services for seniors are overseen by the Department on Aging and Community Living, Age-Friendly DC relies on the advice and expertise of its task force, comprised of DC agency leaders and community representatives appointed by the mayor. Their role is particularly important as the senior population continues to rise in the district and nationwide. In fact, senior population in DC is estimated to be 1/5 of our population. Currently, over 13% of the district's population is over the age of 65, and this is only expected to increase. As you know, AARP counts seniors in the category when you turn 50, you're on your way to the aging community, which is good. So you can see 13% is just a modest estimate of the size of DC's aging population. And of course, seniors have some special considerations. And we'll talk a little bit about that with age-friendly task force. Seniors are not only living in the district, but they're also workers in the district. In 2024, almost 30% of those age 65 and older were a part of our permanent workforce. As chair of the committee responsible for labor and workforce development as well, I think this is an important aspect of being age-friendly. And I look forward to hearing about all efforts that the task force is making to, of course, improve the lives of seniors. I want to note that for the public, in the coming weeks, we will be holding a separate performance oversight hearing of the Department of Employment Services and the Department on Aging and Community Living. And we'll begin hearing from those witnesses on Tuesday, February 25th, and then on Thursday, February 27th. With that, we'll now turn to our government witness for Age-Friendly DC Task Force, and we'll swear in Miss Leah Behennes. All right. So okay. Ms. Behrens, are you?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, all right, great. Would you raise your right hand? And, okay, thank you. Do you swear and affirm that your testimony and any statements made before us today are truthful and complete?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And we will take your testimony when you're ready.
All righty, thank you. Good afternoon, Councilmember Bonds, DC Council, and staff of the committee. My name is Leah Behrens, and I've been fortunate to work alongside Age-Friendly DC Coordinator Gail Cohn, who recently transitioned out of her role in the Office of Deputy Mayor for the Health and Human Services. Today, I'm honored to share the achievements of Age-Friendly DC over the past year and highlight how we can continue to work to make Washington, DC a more livable, inclusive, and equitable city for residents of all ages. Guided by the expertise of AARP and the World Health Organization, Age-Friendly DC has embarked on a life course approach in its latest strategic planning. This approach recognizes that aging is a dynamic process influenced by social, economic, and environmental factors across all stages of life. By embedding this perspective into DC's policies and programs, Age-Friendly DC aims to ensure that DC residents from childhood through adulthood experience a city designed for longevity, inclusiveness, and well-being. This aligns with Age-Friendly DC's mission to improve the experience of aging for all DC community members by making improvements to the built environment, changing attitudes about age and other characteristics, and improving lifelong health and security. Our vision is a city in which all community members have optimal health, longevity, and a quality of life as they age. Next, you can see our framework for Age-Friendly DC Task Force. It is made up of 3 pillars as well as 14 domains, and I will get into each of those domains in a little bit more detail on the next slides. Our first pillar is the built environment, and this pillar includes all man-made structures in a community, including infrastructure, buildings, homes, roads, and sidewalks. These physical features affect all community members' health and quality of life. The pillar's goal is to improve safety, affordability, enjoyment, and access to places in which DC community members of all ages live, work, and play. Domains in this pillar include outdoor spaces and buildings, transportation, and housing. Our second pillar is changing attitudes about age and other characteristics. For this strategic plan, we did add on the other characteristics to really include everyone in this plan. And this pillar really believes in diversity and how it should be celebrated as it continues to bring a variety of talent, skills, and perspectives to our community. Encouraging connection between individuals regardless of background or characteristics, improve individual health and well-being of the entire community. The goal of this pillar is to enhance the quality of life of DC community members by celebrating diversity, promoting inclusion, and achieving equity for people of all ages, abilities, sexual orientations, races, and ethnicities. Domains in this pillar include social participation, respect and social inclusion, civic participation in employment, and lastly, communication and information. Our third pillar and also our largest pillar is lifelong health and security. This pillar highlights the district's variety of services and programs that support community members to live rich and healthy lives. These initiatives include healthcare, learning opportunities, emergency support, and even financial assistance, especially for those in need. This pillar's goal is to improve the health and well-being and safety of all DC community members by adjusting policies and programs, resulting in service delivery that leads to quality prevention, healthcare, and learning opportunities. Domains in this pillar include community support and health services, emergency preparedness and resilience, abuse, neglect, and undue influence, financial security, lifelong learning, public safety, and care partnering, which was previously known as caregiving. Within these pillars, Age-Friendly DC collaborates with 26 district agencies and numerous community organizations to implement policies and programs that improve the quality of life for residents of all ages. In 2024, the Age-Friendly DC launched its 2024 to 2028 multi-sector strategic plan, building on previous successes while addressing new challenges and opportunities identified by the community and the task force. And for our task force, we have at least one DC agency representative, as well as one community organization representative. And they work on their own subcommittee for each domain. And then on top of that, we have pillar leaders as well, who really make sure that we are collaborating together across different domains. Next, we'll move on to some key achievements in 2024. First, starting with the built environment, we wanted to enhance safety and accessibility. Transportation improvements by DDOT have significantly advanced age-friendly DC's objectives by enhancing walkability. This includes constructing pedestrian bridges and addressing sidewalk gaps in all wards. These improvements, especially in areas with low walkability, increase access to walking spaces for all residents. DDOT's Vision Zero efforts, including expanding the Automated Traffic Enforcement ATE program, supporting safety improvements, and reducing speeds by 80%. The expansion of the Capital Bike Share and the improvement of the bus infrastructure also contribute to increasing the use of active transportation and supporting safer streets for all residents. Next, housing accessibility was improved as DHCD advocated advanced quality housing by preserving and developing 110 affordable rental units and supporting 207 home buyers through the Home Purchase Assistance Program, addressing affordable housing options. Also, DHCD also enhanced home safety and mobility by rehabilitating 110 homes via the Single Family Residential Rehabilitation Program, ensuring older residents can remain safely in their home and age in place. For our second pillar, changing attitudes, we wanted to focus on promoting inclusion and engagement. Technology access and training were enhanced through collaborations with Octo, WildTech, Dactyl, and DCPL by advancing digital literacy for older adults, distributing 400 free iPads, and offering comprehensive training to ensure older adults could access telehealth services, connect with loved ones, and stay engaged with community resources. This initiative directly supports our communication and information objective 2.7.1 by increasing access to technology in households, and objective 2.7.2 by expanding technology training to help residents gain digital skills. By empowering older adults with digital tools, we are addressing social participation, objective 2.4.1, to reduce social isolation and improve social participation among older residents while fostering a more connected and informed community. Also within this pillar, we had intergenerational engagement was promoted through DPR's Recreation for All program, which fosters connections across different age groups, abilities, and identities through activities for older adults, women's sports, and intergenerational events. These initiatives support respect and social inclusion, objective 2.5.1, by promoting inclusive, age-diverse events that strengthen community bonds. Additionally, HCMA conducted community preparedness training, engaging 73.9% of single member districts in disaster preparedness initiatives. Volunteerism plays a crucial role in these programs. DPR's roving leaders engaged 1,891 volunteers, contributing to over 56,000 hours in community service, which helped reduce isolation and increase civic engagement, supporting social participation objective 2.4.4. Additionally, Dactyl's Senior Wellness Center contributed to reducing social isolation, as 90% of attendees reported increased awareness and practice of healthy habits, addressing social participation objective 2.4.1 by improving overall well-being and fostering social interaction. On to our third pillar, lifelong health and security, and we wanted to support well-being and stability. Food security for older adults was recognized as a major issue in DC. In response, Age-Friendly DC collaborated with DACL, DPR, and DCL to expand food access distribution programs and increase participation in SNAP and other nutritional assistance initiatives. DACL reported that 4,443 residents attended community dining sites, while 2,961 residents received home-delivered meals, ensuring food security for homebound residents. DC Health reported that their pop-up market served 7,500 unique participants, and the Healthy Corner Store program expanded access to healthy foods in areas of high need. These efforts support the Community Support and Health Services Objective 3.8.1 by directly addressing food access for older adults. Through partnerships with workforce development programs, Age Friendly DC continues to support older adults' employment and workforce development by helping them secure meaningful employment opportunities and promoting financial stability. DACL's state health insurance program provided 5,546 residents with financial literacy assistance, helping them make informed decisions regarding healthcare options and financial security. The HBCU Public Service Program, reported by Octo, facilitated job pathways for graduates from Howard University and UDC, connecting them to public service careers. These initiatives align with Financial Security Objective 3.11.3, ensuring all DC residents have access to tools that improve their economic well-being. Lastly, emergency preparedness and safety was improved as Age Friendly DC worked with MPD, WUNS, and HCEMA to enhance community safety programs and improve emergency preparedness training. HCEMA reported that 100% of Medical Reserve Corps volunteers completed emergency response training, ensuring adequate volunteer support in emergencies. Adult Protective Services, APS, responded to 100% of emergencies within 24 hours and processed 2,266 referrals related to abuse or neglect and protecting vulnerable residents. Additionally, Alert DC sent 8,543 messages providing real-time emergency notification to DC residents, improving community communications and readiness. These efforts contribute to Emergency Preparedness and Resilience Objective 3.9.1, ensuring that all communities have trained volunteers and professionals ready to support in emergencies. Objective 3.9.2, improve emergency communication tools, and Objective 3.9.3, reduce 911 response times and improve customer interactions, while also strengthening protections against elder abuse, fraud, and neglect. Next, we have a couple key publications from fiscal year 2024. First, we have our Age Friendly DC 2018 to 2023 Strategic Plan Progress Evaluation, which evaluated the previous strategic plan through the 2023 Livability Survey, focus groups, and task force collaboration to help shape the 2024 to 2028 strategic plan, which is our next publication, which is the 2024 to 2028 Age Friendly DC Multi-Sector Strategic Plan. And building on the last strategic plan, this multi-sector strategic plan adopts a life course approach to enhance the aging experience for all residents, which I mentioned earlier. It focuses on improving the built environment, promoting positive attitudes towards aging, and ensuring lifelong health and security. The plan aims to make DC safer, more accessible, and inclusive while addressing disparities and ensuring equitable support for everyone, making the city a better place to live, learn, work, and age. Third and fourth, we have our 2024 Age Friendly DC Livability Survey, followed by the Livability Survey Report. And this survey was adapted from the WHO and AARP survey, and this tool gathered community input on aging well in DC, ensuring inclusive and relevant policies. And then our report was able to analyze the survey findings to provide critical insights for implementing the 2024 to 2028 strategic plan. And next, I have a little bit of our survey participant characteristic stats. So this slide provides a big overview, but in total, we had 611 residents complete the survey, which was open to all DC residents aged 18 and older. Participants were recruited through multiple channels, both online and on paper, with surveys and collection boxes left at every DC public library. We had responses from all 8 wards, with highest participation from Ward 4, 6, and 5. Our sample was diverse in gender, age, and race, with strong representation from both white and Black residents. Survey participants ranged in age from 18 to 100 years old, with a median age of 60. This is a shift from the 2023 survey, where the median age was 65, indicating broader participation from younger residents this year. Notably, 1 in 4 participants identified as having a disability, highlighting the importance of accessibility and inclusion in our efforts. Looking ahead to 2025 and beyond. First, we have our Block by Block Walk initiative. This initiative is based on Vision Zero framework and the ARP's Walkability Toolkit, and will mobilize community members throughout October 2025 to assess neighborhood walkability and report safety concerns, directly informing infrastructure improvement and strengthening neighborhood cohesion. And we did this block by block walk back in 2025, so we'll be able to compare the data and have some longitudinal data. Next, we had the expansion of age-friendly DC employer checklists. Age-friendly DC will actively encourage employers to review and implement the latest recommendations from age-friendly DC employers checklist to create a more inclusive and accessible workplace, both physically and online, by promoting best practices in hiring, workplace design, and digital accessibility. We aim to foster environments that support individuals at all life stages. And lastly, we are enhancing data transparency. The age-friendly DC dashboard will be updated with real-time data to track progress on our 2024 to 2028 action plan. So how can you support age-friendly DC? The mayor's executive order for age-friendly DC remains in place through 2028, guiding our ongoing efforts to build a more livable and inclusive city. I invite all council members and those listening to be actively involved in age-friendly DC by signing up for our monthly newsletters for updates and opportunities, reviewing our employer checklist to promote inclusive workplaces, attending our June 11th task force meeting to collaborate on initiatives, and it will be from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Participating in our 2025 livability survey to share valuable insights this summer. And you can also explore our websites for resources, upcoming events, and that was recently just updated this past October. And lastly, joining the Block by Block Walk to access and improve neighborhood accessibility. Lastly, we do have some social media, and our awesome communications manager, Rebecca Dooley, really keeps it updated for us, and we can really reflect a lot of things that we put out in our newsletter on our social media. Together, we can ensure Washington, D.C. continues to be a leader in creating an age-friendly, inclusive, and vibrant community for all. Thank you for your time and consideration. I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation and providing us with the PowerPoint. Makes it a little easier to understand the important role of your task force. How does age-friendly determine what services and resources are needed by the senior population?
So that is included in our livability survey. So we have a question that goes along with our community support and health services. And I can pull that up for you. It would be in the appendix. And it would be under 3B under our livability survey. And so we're able to really hone in on what community members need by ward and if they feel supported in their community. So there is a question about how they feel about their neighborhood cohesion, for example. So we're seeing low community neighborhood cohesion scores there and social participation. That may be an area where we can hone in on services for that community.
All right, so would you be so kind as to state what 3.8 states for the record, because we can't pull the answers up fast enough, okay?
Yes, it is a copy of our 2024 livability survey.
Okay, well, what I'm asking is, this survey, you're saying exclusively through the use of the survey, you determine what services are needed by the senior population. Is that correct?
I would not say solely. I think it's a good starting point for us, but we have our task force that is very connected with the senior population, and they help us determine where services need to be prioritized in certain domains.
All right, and so your task force that you shared with us, I didn't count the number of photographs, but is that what you were speaking of when you say task force?
Yes, so we have at least one representative from the DC agencies for each domain, as well as one community partner representative. And so that would be at least 28 total. And then on top of that, we have 3 pillar leaders. So we have about a little above 30 different members on the task force. And then we have stand-ins for different directors for DC agencies.
All right, so primarily you're getting the service needs information from the government agencies, and then these other individuals who head up organizations like the American Red Cross, Help Age, Low Income Investment Fund, let's see, behavioral program consultant. That's Dr. Sandra Owens Lawson. So in other words, your task force is made up of quote unquote, I guess, experts, and those with have expertise within their offices. Is that
Yes, correct.
what we're to understand? Okay, so
And another area that we used back in 2023 to gather information about residents and their needs is we had about 20 different focus groups from different populations, and they ranged from veterans to LGBTQ to each ward had a specific focus group as well. So we get a lot of information when we do the progress evaluation of our strategic plan.
I see. Okay. So general population doesn't really contribute unless they contribute through complaints or concerns or hearings conducted by the operating agency, or they are in touch with the private sector that may provide services to seniors. Is that what you're informing me of?
Yes, and we take all of that into consideration when discussing the next strategic plan.
All right, I then would like to get from you, please, within 2 weeks, a copy of information that you have received regarding transportation needs from the various entities, from the Department of Transportation, DDOT, from any of the ambulatory service providers that would be on that task group, or that as part of that pillar, I guess is what you would call it.
We can absolutely do that for you.
Okay, that would be very helpful. I ask that because I find it very interesting that there's no information in the document you provided us with that speaks to a couple of areas that we hear from seniors on. And as you know, my office is in touch with senior population regularly. We hear about questions about bike lanes and questions about the road diet and how it's mapped out. And so it's not listed as any of the important elements that the agency is focused on as it relates to senior service. So I'm very curious about that.
Yes, and that's something that we're really trying to tackle with this block by block walk is understanding how we can make areas that might be a little less walkable and how we can move forward with making them more walkable. And that might be as simple as they need a sidewalk fix, or there are certain trees that are uprooting their sidewalk, or they need a longer crosswalk. And that is what we're really excited about to find out for
Yes,
this upcoming block by
yes,
block.
yeah. I'm familiar with the broken sidewalks, and we see pictures of those situations on a regular basis. And my constituent services team works diligently and gets resolution. What I'm really talking about is I have not been at any meeting with seniors that I have not heard the issue of bike lanes are problematic, particularly in front of the buildings they live in, being knocked down on sidewalk by bikes and scooters, and then the confusion with the road diet arrangements that we are putting in place. So I just find it very interesting that this process has been going on through DDOT for at least 5 years, and we're finally saying, oh, maybe we do need to look at the structures that we're putting in place 5 years later with our senior population. I'm just trying to understand how we get work done in this city when we say we want seniors to age in place, and we know that these are individuals that do have income and contribute to the economy of our city. So just trying to understand that.
Yes, absolutely. And we do meet with our transportation subcommittee. We meet with them every 3 months or so, and they are very much updating us on Vision Zero, which you are speaking about, of any injuries or fatalities from bikes or scooters running into someone on the sidewalk. And a big part of that is hearing, understanding the rules that they have to comply to, as well as the roads and how those are different. And a lot of people that are not interacting with biking or scootering to work per se are a little lost, is what we're hearing, of where they can and cannot be on, if they can or cannot be on the sidewalk, for example. So we've been really trying to tackle that and help push forward the Vision Zero framework. And hopefully that will be able to address some of those concerns with bike lanes like you were speaking towards.
All right, well, thank you very much. Does Age Friendly have parameters in place to help prevent seniors from incidents of fraud or unscrupulous scams?
Yes, so we work very closely with Disney, and they really help with the financial scams, as well as Octo does a lot of digital classes. And one of those classes particularly focuses on scams, as well as Wild Tech does similar classes. So we are constantly pushing those out in our newsletters and any information that we're able to put out to the public.
All right, thank you for that information. So in other words, if you are a senior in the district and you are not utilizing your electronic device, or you do not have an electronic device, we really don't have a system for communicating with you about, fraud or scam that you have encountered. They just should
I
just
know
call the police, or what should they do, in fact?
that is a very good question. Another instance of fraud that we're seeing often is with contractors as well. So working with contractors and organizations like LIFT, the Low Income Investment Fund, they're able to warn these individuals who might be seeking out, more rehabilitation to their homes so they can age in place. So that is one example, is having just more outreach and meeting these seniors where they are. And a big kind of overarching issue is the idea of social isolation, which we are trying to tackle. And how do we really get to these people? Because it's more of getting the information to them and where they are. And that's why we've found that working with these different digital equity initiatives has been very helpful, because we can really meet them where they are and help them learn a new skill and help them take a doctor's appointment from their own home.
All right, so I hear that you're doing wonderful things with the digital platforms. I am unfortunately stuck back here with those that do not have the digital platform. The closest they come to that is the electronic use of maybe a radio, or maybe watching cable television, watching the channel 13, channel 14, DC information, or word of mouth from their neighbors. They're not on a computer. And so I'm really curious as to whether or not the age-friendly task force has given thought and has in place a mechanism for reaching those individuals that may need information.
Yes, I understand. I think part of that is being able to give a phone call. Who do you need to call? And we're always telling people, if they are going through something that they feel like the government can assist with, start with 311 and they can help you, assist you from there. As well as they could go straight to DISB, that would be very helpful as well, or calling APS. And I know they work closely with DACL. So that is something that we can start with. And we've found through our past livability surveys that a lot of people are learning from online their information, but they also are learning word of mouth as well as print communication. So we're really trying to push print communications for those residents to meet them where they are.
A number of grandparents in the city stand in the gap as caregivers for their grandchildren. In fact, we actually have a apartment building that's dedicated to grandparents with helping to raise young people. Does Age Friendly provide resources or have any support systems in place to assist these grandparents?
Yes, absolutely. So we work with Home Care Partners. Also, they have the DC Caregiver Institute, and they are able to train caregivers. We call them care partners, and they're able to make them feel less of, become more educated about what they can provide for who they are caring for, or what resources are out there. And so that's been a great resource that we've been able to promote through Age Friendly DC, and they do a great job. And they spoke with us recently, and they were telling us prior to COVID, there were about 7 institutes in DC where caregivers could get trained. And as you know, caregivers are very short funded and very hard to come by in DC. Many are coming from outside DC, more of the DMV. And there were about 7 different areas where people could get trained, and now they are down to just 2. So the work they're doing is extra important that they are able to provide.
Thank you for that response. You mentioned something that I'm kind of stuck on here. The issue of caregivers and their training requirements. As you know, the council um, passed legislation that insists on training for, I call them caregivers for our young people. And somehow caregivers for senior population and those with disabilities was not factored in. Would that be a place that we should give attention to into the future?
Absolutely. We should definitely work together on that. And thank you for bringing that to my attention.
All right, it seems to me since your task force is citywide, and I note that some of the persons who would have influence on that, including the Red Cross and the home care partners and the deputy mayor for Health and Human Services in your office where you are,
Mhm.
seemingly would be very concerned, and Department of Human Services, so that the issue is not just looking after our young people, it's what happens with those who look after our seniors. And what attention are we really giving to that, since all of us will be seniors if we're lucky?
Exactly. We are all aging.
All right. I would appreciate hearing from you as to whether or not this is an issue that the task force will take up. Um,
Yes.
and
It is
and
go ahead.
you can send me a note. I'd like to get a note in 2 weeks on that before we go into the budget season and
Of
things that might
course.
affect, your small budget. What is your budget, by the way?
We have a budget based on our salary. We are just a salary budget, and
Okay.
we just have our small team of 2. And
Oh,
we have a lot of support from DMHHS
all
as
right.
for staff.
All right. So every paper and pencil and um, computer, I see it's in the deputy mayor's office.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
And we
Thank
have
you.
them stockpiled, and we need to organize them right now. We have some renovations going on that
All right.
definitely have shifted us.
All right. According to the updated age-friendly task force members for 24 through 28, you indicated that there are approximately 12 new pillars or domains. What are these pillars that are being added?
We do not necessarily have any new pillars. We've adjusted our pillar 2. So before it was changing attitudes about growing older, and now we've changed it to changing attitudes about age and other characteristics to really incorporate that social participation and respect and social inclusion, as well as making sure we are using the life course approach. And then we have changed, as I said before, we did the care giving has switched to care partnering. But as for the domains, they have stayed the same from 2018, from 2018 to 2023 strategic plan.
Well, the document that we have of your task force members, 2024 to 2028, show that the new, I guess, pillars or domains
Yes,
are,
I'm sorry.
you have both. Yeah, you have both a domain, one listed as a domain. And I was just trying to make sure that we understand from your presentation that you began your comments with, that this is the configuration that you're using going forward 2024 through 2028. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, with the changes that you specified. And
Yes.
of that, that is one is the pillar of building or built environment facilitator.
Yes.
And the domain one of outdoor space and buildings, which we haven't discussed yet. And then transportation. And then pillar two, changing attitudes about growing older facilitator. These are the areas that would be new in the 2024-2028 that you're
Yes.
currently working on. Okay.
Yes. So we have those new pillar facilitators. Before we just had those domain representative. And now since we have pillar facilitators, they're really able to help lead this task force and making sure that we have inner agency, inner domain connectedness. So the idea, if we have an objective on helping people stay in their homes, and that objective might be accomplished by a let's say a DOE program that helps lower cost for energy costs for a home. That also might be included in our financial security domain as well. So really making sure that we understand that our task force domains are not working in their own little silos, that they are working with each other to accomplish these objectives.
All right. And so for pillar one, where you built environment facilitator, you have the low income investment fund that's leading that discussion, correct?
Correct. Yes. And
Okay, I'm just trying to
well.
understand how it would be used. Okay, great. Okay. And in that pillar is the outdoor spaces and buildings, which includes the Super Age organization, Department of Parks and Recreation, and the Office of Planning.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm trying to understand their relationship to outdoor spaces and buildings, but we'll figure it out. And with transportation, you've added WMATA, along with the Department of Transportation, and DDOT, of course, the stand-in. And you also have under, that's it for that domain. And then the changing attitudes about growing older facilitator is now the Rodman Institute, right? Rodman
Yes,
Institute. Correct. Okay. And okay. Trying to understand the relationship, since these are people who these are individuals who are setting the mark for how we approach service delivery for those who are aging. And I think it's very important when currently 1/5 of our population is considered aged and growing every day. And we need to know who's saying what and who's trying to plan for what. And where do we go in DC society to learn those that are in charge of what we should be accomplishing for this population. So I thank you for that.
Absolutely. And just to add to that a little bit, Bradley Sherman, he is with the Super Age. It is a book he has written, and it really talks about that, how our demographic is shifting to an older population, and that we're having less children too, so we don't have that replacement rate. So what does that mean? And that really just means empowering the older generation and giving them opportunities to be employed if they would like to be, to have access to these services. And so thank you for bringing that up.
That is very important. As you know, this committee is concerned with workforce as well as DACL, Commission on Aging, to just name a few of the agencies under our purview. And I'm very concerned that we began to see our city, as you have just indicated. It's a city, a community that has to accommodate seniors who living longer, perhaps healthier, and certainly are seeing themselves having to earn income through employment. And I don't see anything that in this plan that really speaks to that facet um, of concern that seniors have. Many of those persons, for instance, who are in federal government, who perhaps are taking their early buyout, as the current federal administration has indicated, are going to be persons definitely over 50 years of age. And AARP says you're a senior if you're 50 or older. You get your card, you get your 10% discount when you go to, as one person told me yesterday, to Denny's restaurant. So, and that's sort of a perk. But the point is that we have a preponderance of individuals that are going to need services through that process and going into the future. There may be cuts to the um, amount of matching dollars that the district has in order to have this wonderful Medicare and Medicaid programs. And, I hope that your plan for the future, your strategic plan for the future, can begin to look at these situations, because we don't know how long it's going to last, and certainly don't want it to last or be an issue at all, but it is something that we have to deal with. We also receive comments from persons who are mature, aging, who have investments not in the city, but in other parts of the country. And they're worried that we have said that you're going to have to pay taxes on those investments. And so, and meanwhile, the price of eggs are $12, these are, so how do we begin to look at the realities and not to say that the work that is being planned perhaps is necessary, but how do we get to other facets of life? And is there a way for the age-friendly task force to inform us? Maybe we need a little ad hoc committee to deal with the immediate. Just wondering if you've given thought to that, or would you give thought to that? Because that's certainly where I am. And as a legislator, we can put together ad hoc committee in a minute, but I'd like to know that we're doing it in concert with existing, processes that we have in our government.
Absolutely. And we like to say with our strategic plan, it's a living document. So we are constantly, one, adding partners, and two, adjusting it to really fit the time that we're in and how it can best serve our community members. And that might mean we, like you said, we can start a subcommittee that is very timely on what is going on. I feel like every day we wake up and there is something new, and there is something that can affect our strategic plan. So we are limited with our capacity, but we are definitely trying our best to keep updated and vigilant about the upcoming challenges. I think part of that is our action plan that is ongoing. So we have our task force that is able to update our publicly available action plan. So we are constantly understanding what they are doing and what others are doing, and where those gaps are, and where we might need to concentrate some more efforts. So that is one possibility moving forward. And then as for, you mentioned earlier about the older adults older adults wanting employment. And we don't necessarily want to have them bagging groceries. They might want to explore something within DC government that they've always be interested in. And we've worked closely with DOES, and they actually have apprenticeship for age-friendly workers, which has been really, really awesome. And it helps with aged 50 plus for skilled trade and healthcare roles. And they also have the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. And then that is more career counseling and job placements tailored to older adults in transition. And so maybe they've gone to retirement and they've said, actually, I want to maybe put a little more on my plate. So that is an option for them. And lastly, they have the Senior Community Service Employment Program, which is for low income residents, 55 and plus, and supporting a part-time role in public agencies. And I know if Gail was here, she would be talking about how can we have more part-time workers in care partnering positions, for example, or healthcare positions, because those we see are very, very short staffed. And hopefully that is somewhere that we can push a little bit more in the coming year. But to answer your question overall, we are constantly updating our action plan. It's a living document, and constantly adjusting our strategic plan, adding partners to stay as updated as possible. We start developing in 2023, but it has not looked the same probably week to week.
Well, thank you for that comment. I note that the document that you shared with us for 24-28 has domain 6, which is civic participation and employment. And you have 2 individuals or 2 organizations listed there, DOES, Department of Employment Services, and Iona House, or the Iona program. And I certainly hope that there will be others that we can count on. I know, for instance, that the UDC has a senior employment program, and with over 300 people employed or receiving a stipend, which tells me that individuals really, as they age, still want to contribute and be helpful in community. And you mentioned a couple of programs I'm not familiar with, as far as being treated as aging programs, where workforce is a part of it. So we'll follow up on that. We know about for instance, we know about the DC Central Kitchen, the culinary jobs. We know about Iona House. We know about, and you list here the one's office. Are we sure that this is the one's office is interested in hiring seniors, persons who are, at least I think by government standard, our government standard, 62 and older? Do they have persons?
So we were speaking with Julie Irving. I think we were referring to the Pathways program, and that is employment for residents Ward 7 and 8, and really, trying to give them a second chance or start them on the right path. So when we spoke with them, they did not, we asked if they were looking at, ages 18 to 30, and they said they do not have a age limit, which we were happy to hear about.
I see. So in other words, work programs throughout the city that share information with you and indicate they do not have an age limit are those that you list as potential partners in the age-friendly task force.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that.
And that is something that we have included in our employment age-friendly checklist, and really helps us push our employers or any agencies or community partners we work with to really reflect and understand, are they attracting older adults? Are they attracting older adults that would like to work, or are they kind of pigeonholing themselves to only attracting younger adults?
All right. Well, us seniors love you for that. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Just 1 second. All right. Well, we want to thank you very much for sharing with us today, and we appreciate hearing more about age-friendly, and certainly getting any follow-up information that you receiving any follow-up information from the committee. And we look forward to being a part of all of what you're doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your questions.
And to our audience, we hope we haven't lost too many of you and that you're still with us. We are going to close our session for today. I think we've covered a lot of material and gained some insight into the work of these agencies. And of course, I want to thank everyone who participated in today's performance oversight hearing. The input is invaluable to the oversight process, and we appreciate the insight into how the DC government is working. If the public has any additional thoughts or would like to submit written testimony regarding the performance of these agencies, please email it to seal@dccouncil.gov, and that is CEAL@dccouncil.gov. The hearing record will close in 10 business days from today on Thursday, the 24th of February, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. The committee's next performance oversight hearing will take place on Wednesday, February 19th, 2025, beginning at 9:30. And that will be a hearing with the Board of Elections, the Office of Campaign Finance, the Office of the Inspector General, and the Financial Literacy Council. With that, this concludes today's hearing. The time is 1:27 p.m. on February 13th, 2025, and the meeting is adjourned. And thanks to my team, staff, and thanks to the support office of the council for all that they do to make sure that we are able to transmit these hearings. And of course, we thank all who bothered to tune in and participate